because it's just so extremely intensive, and those have auto dialers that are super quick and intense. Like you basically have no room for rest because you're basically just dialing and dialing and dialing and dialing. Not necessarily the best fit, but if you want to have simple things, like I think like just like the good callbacks, the quality callbacks, absolutely. So yeah, I would say yes, but depending on how you set it up.
Okay. So once again, Thomas, I really want to thank you. I know you're at a hackathon today.
Yep,
So
I gotta
really
go back.
appreciate your time.
We're deep in it right now, so we got some points deliveries now, and I think we're going to be there at 6 o'clock. So that would be interesting to see which teams are ahead on day one. So it's a 3-day hackathon in up here in Oslo, in the snow blizzards.
Well, thanks so much, Thomas, and please don't forget to share your contact details in the chat so
Yeah,
that
sure.
the community can keep in touch with you and what you're up to.
There we go. That's pretty much all you need to know.
Thank you so much once again.
Thank you so much for having me, Ras. Really nice.
Thank you so much, Sandsor.
Have a great day, the rest of you, bye, people. Bye.
Thomas, the CRM keeper. Round of applause. Thank you, Thomas. Thank you. Excellent, guys. Well, there you go. So now we're preparing to welcome in the next 2 minutes. We'll be welcoming Seb from Microsoft's product team for customer service and contact center. So we will be hearing from the horse's mouth about the roadmap and around the new capabilities of customer service, and many of your questions that you have around configuration, particularly around contact center, because this morning and most of today, you have been learning about how to configure customer service and omni-channel. And I know many of you have questions on contact center capabilities and configurations as well. And I know there's a lot of confusion around that aspect. So we'll get a great opportunity to get some further insight into contact center. So Seb will be joining in 2 minutes. For those who are not aware, once Seb has completed that presentation, then we have none other than Tricia, who will be showing you. So Tricia is Microsoft MVP. She's also the lead for customer services for Avanade. She will be going more into detail on configuring the AI capabilities. And then we have SLA configurations with Nathan from New Zealand. And then finally, I know many of you still had questions regarding the configurations for portals. Well, we do have a session purely on how to set up portals as well as Copilot as well for customer service. So we still got a lot to get through. So without further ado, we are on time. So I'd like to welcome Seb. So Seb Reeve from Microsoft. We're grateful to have you today. Seb, are you able to turn your microphone on so we can hear you?
I hope you can hear me. I haven't said anything yet, so that's why you're not hearing me. Can you hear me now, Raz?
Oh, fantastic. Yes, Seb, we can hear you now.
That's good news. It's always nice when Teams works, right? It's a bit embarrassing if Teams lets us down on one of these sessions. So I'll start at least with that as a quick win. Well, thanks for the invite. Well, firstly, you can see from my opening slide, I missed the memo on the Lego. There is a good reason for that. I'm actually standing in for a colleague of mine, Alpana, from the engineering team. I'm also a part of the Microsoft engineering team. She unfortunately sends her apologies and couldn't make the session today. So I got a call at about 10 or 11 last night, was it? I think Trish was responsible for hooking me into this quite late last evening. So I haven't got the Lego template, so I'm missing on that. And yes, Tricia just said sorry in the chat, quite right. And mostly about the Lego template though, Trish. You could have at least told me there was a theme. That would have been good. So for my part, Seb Reeve, I come from the engineering team. I'm not actually your traditional kind of product manager in the classic sense, really. So it says, as you can see from the title slide, I'm in product strategy, and what that really means is my responsibilities for figuring out what we're doing in contact center, what the market needs from us, and how to drive growth for Microsoft solutions in the space. Like Chris Goodwill, whose great presentation I caught a little while back, I've been in contact centers for quite a long period of time. including a lot of time in the last sort of 10 or 12 years at a company called Nuance. And Nuance was and inside Microsoft still is a leader in the sort of speech recognition and language understanding space. So Thomas, first thing I did just now during your presentation is write a bit of a note to some of our AI leads on the text-to-speech side to ask about Norwegian and why Norwegian sounds so halting to you, and what's not going right there for you. So I will chase that up because it's quite good feedback. Obviously, I don't understand Norwegian, so there's no way I could check whether it works, right? So it's good to get that kind of feedback in the sense that we can try and do something about it. Nuance was a company that really worked in that space. So we were working with Norwegian companies, and Nordea, Norwegian bank, actually had a natural language understanding, a conversational AI system handling self-service in Norway and the rest of the Nordics, in fact, for quite a long time, so nearly 10 years. And so it's not that new in the sense of users getting used to it. My own experience when I started at Nuance about 12 years ago, so it would have been about 2009. I mean, one of my first meetings then was with a bank in the UK, and a very senior stakeholder at the bank, having been shown a demo of speech recognition and what it would do for customer service, a conversational solution, said, my customers will never want that. So about 15, just over 15 years ago, that's the kind of reaction that we were battling through. Of course, a lot's happened since then. And I would say, and I'll dig into this a little bit more in a second, that there's a lot of reasons customers actually will choose to use that if they think they're going to get some value from it, right? And I think what I loved about your demo, Thomas, just now is you start to show the design tools, but also some of the challenges of designing the experiences that customers are going to get. And the choice of words and the pauses between them and how it sounds and all of these kinds of things really do impact the way people use these systems. So it's not all about technology. You know, a lot of it's really about design, getting the language right, making sure it's clear to them, all of that kind of thing. And that's been sort of my background for a long period of time in the space. So I'm going to talk about where we're going in a short while, and I will sort of revert back to where we are and why we're there. I think is kind of a key thing, and I'll try not to repeat too much from the last few presentations, but there's a few things going on in the space, and I know we've got you know, maybe some of you, Thomas was included in that, maybe not quite there in terms of the AI hyperbole, right? The hype on AI at this point in time. But in the customer service and in the contact center space, I can assure you that generative AI is a bit of a big deal. So I've spent a long time going to lots of industry events relating to very specifically contact center. And if you go wander the floor of a trade show or an event anywhere in the world right now, I can almost guarantee that every single stand has Gen AI or something related to it written on it. It is almost everywhere. And a lot of those organizations don't really have any Gen AI, right? They're using Azure, they're using competitive solution or cloud solutions, they're using OpenAI type technologies directly in their APIs to consume these kinds of capabilities, LLMs, large language models, to try and build something that can really change the way we think about what service can feel like. And so it's a massive topic, and so it is driving us forward at Microsoft, and it should be. And I'm going to dig into why, and not just why and where it is now and some of that, but where it's going and why I think that's important. The second massive trend, and we've seen a few demos about setting up multiple channels, from voice to that great demo on WhatsApp just now, to SMS, to many other different kind of ways customers want to contact us. But the big topic is it has been handling all of those channels for a long period of time. Most customer service operations and contact center operations want to do that and have wanted to do that for quite a while. I think the big topic is really more journeys. And what journeys is how the different touch points and modes of communication with a customer join up, right? Because if we think about what it's like being a customer, I don't just call you once. I might call you a few times. I might contact you on a number of different channels over a period of time about the same issue to try and get it resolved. And it's not always the case that I call you and it's done, right? I mean, if only the world worked like that, it often doesn't. And if you're in a complex industry with a complex product set, like in financial services, and you're applying for a home loan, there could be 5 to 20 different calls over a period of months, all related to roughly the same thing, right? Or your journey with that brand to acquire that particular product. And so this idea that channels, and we need to be able to handle channels effectively, is great, but how do we stitch all that together? How do we understand what the broader journey is with the customer, and what are they doing, and how can we optimize for that? How can we guide them in the right way so they're actually using the right way to contact us as they move through, a buy flow or something else with us that they're trying to do? So that's really kind of also quite formative in the way we're thinking. And the third area that's sort of really coming across loud and clear from the market, and not only in the AI sphere, but I'll use the term for it as a general concept. It's reinforcement learning, or data-driven learning, really, right? So this is kind of really where we use data as the forcing function for change, and figuring out how we can more automate change in a complicated environment like a contact center or in customer service, is actually a pretty big deal. I mean, we all spend a huge amount of time configuring, updating, learning on what new customer demands are coming in the solutions we're providing, and trying to figure out how to change that in a timely way so tomorrow's experience is better than today's, right? So there's a lot of chasing the ball that goes on in these environments. So how can we speed that up, right? How can we use data to enact change in a more efficient way? And so these three topics, almost in every customer interaction I have, I work with a lot of the major accounts that Microsoft are talking to about both contact center and customer service today. These three topics are sort of burning for them, right? They're certainly kind of impactful, or they believe they'll be impactful in terms of what they can do if they solve for it. Now, I know we're a tech audience, but I think it's important that we understand why we're doing it, right? Why did Thomas really sort of grow to like the WhatsApp channel, potentially, right? He might not be a WhatsApp user, but he can see some value in it. Why do customers kind of move towards one mode of contact versus another? Why are brands actually spending money on any of this, right? What is it all about, and what are we trying to do? So I'm not going to do a sort of a whole business lecture on that, but it's important that we stay grounded in terms of what the key challenges are. Right. Every organization I talk to is somehow trying to do exactly the same thing, which is grow and grow their business in an environment, in a market that is extremely low growth these days. Right. So any source of advantage to help your business grow usually gets budget and approved budget to go and do something about. Right. And what is proven, and this is not new news, this has been known for a long period of time, and this is McKinsey data, but I could find a number of other sources that would say roughly the same thing, is the leaders in customer experience, i.e. the ones who provide these great experience to customers, tend to grow at double the rate of laggards, right? So those who don't do as good a job. So doubling your growth over your competition because you invest in experience or service or contact center is a big deal, right? That is a C-suite kind of mandate, really, is grow your company. That's what shareholders are going to care about. And if we kind of look at some of the things that McKinsey on the right-hand side say their leaders do, is they break down silos, they create really strong listen and response systems, and they unify and measure at journey level, right? So again, back to what I said about mega trends, and we've heard a bit about silos already, and I'll go back to that in a second. These things are important because they lead to growth, right? So it's just a business mandate. But if we think about, that's great for the business. If we think about what end customers like and what they might choose and what basis they might choose it on, why would I choose WhatsApp over SMS, right? Yeah, I can send some pictures and things, right? That's some cool features in there, right? I can interact in a sort of multimodal way. That's fantastic, and it might make it quicker. But what it's really about is making it easier. And the thing with WhatsApp that people kind of really appreciate is it's much easier to manage my journey with the companies I do business with as a consumer, not only because WhatsApp's convenient and I understand it. It's much like SMS in the end, though, on my phone, right? I have to type into it, or I can talk into it, I guess. I can send messages and I can send images, and I can largely do that in the Messages app as well as in WhatsApp. What people love about messaging generally is I can see the history. And I maintain that history. So there's actually a shared communal history that your customer and your brand has to remind them what they were talking about last time they called you or spoke to you, right? And why they contacted you. And they can go back through that history and say, oh, I haven't spoken to them or chased that up for a while. Whereas the old school channels like the phone Once you put it down, everyone lost the context, right? You didn't really have this idea of a journey joined up. So, but in the end, it's really about effort. And the other thing that's proven in this sort of growth space, this sort of what does the CEO care about, is if you make it easier for customers. This is sort of proven. This book here, The Effortless Experience, is probably about 15 years old now. If you make it low effort for someone, you will actually increase the loyalty someone has with a brand, right? They'll come back and buy more from you. They're more likely to spend more money on your products versus somebody else's. All of this great stuff that people care about on the business side. So in the end, customer service and contact centers are really about making it easy so we can get loyalty and drive growth for brands, right? So that's a really simple kind of way to think about an equation as to what we're actually trying to solve for. So this low effort thing, right? Why do we want to do a conversational bot versus one that will have to listen to 15 options? Because it's easier, right? I can say what I want. Hopefully I'm understood and I get to the right place in a much more effective and easy way. That leads to loyalty, that leads to growth, right? So that's really why we're doing it. If you kind of want to get into the sort of the business that underpinnings of this. So when we look at, a version of this same chart we've seen a few times today already, yeah, there's some systemic problems here, right? Historically, in fact, in most large businesses, this still really happens quite a lot. Because we have lots of different systems on the left that are providing interfaces to customers in some way to get something done. There's inconsistency in the way the self-service works, right? I might have a bot on one platform, I might not on another. So, I might not be able to do any self-service. On SMS, it might be really, really simplistic, right? I have to actually use the right codes to type in, or on the IVR, I might still be pressing 1 or pressing 2 and listening to options, right? So self-service is very patchy or very different across different channels. And also this idea that I can, when I need to speak to someone, there's just a different set of technologies to find the right resource, right? To route to someone. So this inconsistency on the sort of systems side, the channels side of things, also impacts a few other things, right? It impacts journeys. Because if as a customer, I've decided to go to your website, have a chat with a bot, get some answers, but not everything I need, and then call you, and this is on multiple systems, we're not getting really a single view or a single experience that really knows that you just made contact on 2 channels about the same thing. So this idea of silos is really important because it leads to fragmentation. But on the right-hand side, the fragmentation is also a business problem. And also historically, it's been a dynamics issue as well to some extent. So whilst we have a single CRM platform that can handle service, sales, marketing, and a lot of the back office tasks that people might want to do, there are actually historically in Microsoft different leaders, different solutions in the business, right? So you buy them differently. There's a different SKU for Dynamics 365 customer service versus sales, or customer insight for marketing. That's true. But also within the engineering team, within Microsoft, different leaders were creating different solutions for a sales user, for a service user, for a marketing user, and not necessarily being joined up. And if you think about what a customer does in the life that they have with a brand, with a company, is they start probably as a marketing end user, right? As a marketing consumer. They probably then go through a sales experience in some way, shape, or form, and eventually might become a customer to be a service customer with you, right? There's a journey there. And so there is a need to think more holistically about how we join up those lines of business solutions more effectively as well. Because a few other things start to happen. When I'm having a service experience, for example, with my mobile provider, they will quite often be trying to figure out how to sell me an upgrade, right? Sell me some add-on solutions for my tariff, for example. So service and sales are very closely linked. Excuse me. So these concepts are incredibly important from our perspective to think about what customers are really doing with brands and how do our solutions need to align to that, right? So enough said at this point. So we need to unify these journeys, service, sales, marketing, so you can go all the way through the flow, and it makes a ton of sense from a customer perspective. So in WhatsApp, I can kind of see that this is all seamless and all one thing. So that's the driving goal, really, right? And why we're doing it. And we've kind of evolved, as some of you will know, I guess, if you look at it through a history lens. Contact Center was launched about 7 months ago, right, in July last year. But that's really the culmination of a whole bunch of different investments and releases over a period of time. And Thomas mentioned omnichannel. Omnichannel is really the precursor solution to contact center, right? In some senses, it was renamed as an add-on to CRM, to customer service. So now you buy customer service with contact center instead of customer service with omnichannel. But we had a digital only experience before that. We've made some acquisitions to acquire capabilities, like with the acquisition of Nuance to get lots of speech recognition and language understanding resources in the business to do a better job of the great demo that we saw earlier on of how to build a voice bot. But going back in time, and obviously, that's important because the direction of travel that we have has been to get to a standalone contact center solution. Why? Because the market wants it, right? Not everyone is ready to change their CRM with us. And so while Thomas may not touch Salesforce or ServiceNow, we have a lot of organizations out there we speak to who are on those platforms that we can add a ton of value to without changing that core CRM in the first instance, and almost see it as a way to establish a relationship with a new organization we do business with. So maybe later on we can change that for Dynamics 365 customer service, right? So there's a big strategic imperative for us to launch a standalone contact center. And so that's really was the sort of key driver, or the key drivers to get us to July. And that contact center is complete. There's a couple of things I'm going to talk about in the roadmap, and I'm going to get to some sort of pieces that I'll share, some sneaky peeks as to what we're doing to sort of fill those gaps, and also where this is going in a second. But it covers pretty much everything the market requires from us from a contact center as a service solution. And so we spend a lot of time talking to analysts like Forrester, Gartner, and others about what they consider a complete solution to be and where we measure up against that. And we've made really strong inroads. So frankly, we're pretty close to being absolutely on the money in terms of what the leading contact center solutions want. But they don't always customers don't in and of itself also want the entire contact center. So we've also made the solution latterly more composable. And what I mean by that is you can adopt pieces of the solution to get started, right? So that Copilot for voice, the IVR in sort of old language, a voice bot, if you will, is now independently adoptable. So you can buy a license from Microsoft, which is just the voice platform. We also do Copilots, of course, as standalone as part of the Power Platform, but also the contact center comes in voice and digital alternatives as well. So voice only, digital only, or both, right? And you can decide and sort of really choose your own adventure in terms of the way you adopt these capabilities. And that gives us a lot of flexibility to sort of meet the needs of different kinds of customers in terms of how they want to really get started with us. But of course, it's all built on this sort of common framework, right? So I think one of the strengths we have in market is there's a lot of companies in that contact center layer at the top there, right? A lot of brands that have been doing this for a long time. It's a highly mature space. And of course, many of us on this call know the next layer down extremely well, the next two layers down extremely well, right? In terms of CRM, service sales, customer insights for marketing, the systems of record, like where we keep our data, what we understand about customers, how we manage workflow, all of those great things are in there. And contact center is really about then channels and context, right? How we communicate and manage that communication. So bringing those things together is important. There's not many organizations really have strength in all of these spaces together. The fact that we then have the tools, the data platform, and the AI and the global reach through Azure to actually kind of really deliver on that is a particular strength, right? So again, this is highly composable. You can choose any of these solutions broadly as standalone to get started, but work your way to a complete solution that's pre-integrated across the entire stack. So that, from a strength and market perspective, has gotten us a lot of really great feedback, right? So we've made some inroads, and I'll talk about some of the brands that have made big bets with Microsoft in the space. The other thing is, we benefit from a lot of the other solutions across the Microsoft ecosystem. The fact that we have Azure and all the great capabilities there meant that when we launched our brand new contact center solution in July, we could launch in 240 countries in 48 odd languages, and we already had a whole ecosystem of partners and systems integrators and MVPs and specialists who are already up to speed with a large tract of the platform and are now learning just those contact center pieces, right, and how they work, which is great. But everything you already know still holds true, right? It's still storage in Dataverse. We're still using Power for workflow and customization. We're absolutely using Copilot's Studio to build all of our conversational experiences. All of that is there and is staying. So contact center is not some standalone solution that's going to create some difficulties in deployment. So, onboarding all of you to actually kind of understand the solution in full is really helpful. The other thing we get from Azure, frankly, and I think Chris might have alluded to this earlier on, is it's built on ACS. It's built on communication services, the infrastructure that sits foundationally under Teams, which means we have a huge amount of strength in the space of voice. And the one piece of feedback I'm getting in a lot of the competitive engagements I'm involved with is, well, Microsoft, it's very new. Can you do voice? Right. And I think it's incumbent on us to kind of get across just how much scale our complete voice platform has. 320 million monthly active users in the Teams environment. 20 million of those are working with external phone calls to public switch telephone networks, right? They have calling plans essentially. And that's with an incredibly high uptime, right? So this is a telco grade solution that's proven to scale on a global basis. And as a new entrant into the contact center space, we have this massive leap by at least having this in our kit bag and having built on the Teams platform. And that also has benefited us at Microsoft in a few ways as well. So we sort of talked about how we're our own customer zero is one way of putting it, right? I mean, you could call us our own guinea pig. Our support organization gets to test and use and evaluate all of the capabilities before launch that we come up with. One of the things we've changed, and this is again a sort of a bit of a sneaky inside peek into what's been going on over the last sort of 18 months or 18 months into last year, is we've moved from a traditional contact center platform that Microsoft were using across 35 odd thousand users, right? Active users in Microsoft support that are doing voice on a regular basis are now all in that Azure Communication Services stack, right? So we've made significant inroads to get large volumes of users onto a new platform, to get them off of those legacy platforms. And that's had a major impact in terms of our own cost basis, our own ability to provide agile service and voice-based services across the world. So, we're actually doing this ourselves as kind of a vehicle to test, learn, evaluate, make changes to product, and make sure what we release is actually really ready for the market, ready for prime time. So this is really the way we think, the way we work. And the other thing we've certainly done a lot of in the Microsoft support operation, and this is kind of really where generative AI has sort of hit the contact center or customer service space big time, is really on the agent side, right? So Copilot's on the agent side, and mostly are trying to do some flavor of this, right? They're taking the context about the communication we're having, transcription, sentiment, summarizing what is being discussed, the case information, potentially all of that context, and then really evaluating what action could be taken from that. So that could be in context suggestions, a search or knowledge retrieval, creating some content like an email or a response, or actually executing on a workflow, right? Going to a back-end system through Power and figuring out that we actually need to go and do something right now. So Copilots are all doing some variation on a theme here. And this we've evaluated at significant scale in Microsoft support as well. And the kind of features that our agents have fed back that they really love in the solution are summarization. Seems really simple, right? So give me a 2-paragraph version of this really long call. But if you think about it, in a complicated support operation like ours, quite often that call gets passed, or that chat gets passed to someone else, right? A tier 2 to a tier 3 engineer. And then they have to read all of the transcripts of the prior call or the prior calls to figure out what's going on before they can, be effective to a customer. So if Gen AI or a Copilot can summarize that into 2 or 3 paragraphs and they can get up to speed quicker, well, that saves a ton of time, and time's money, right? It's great experience, but it's also money from the service provider perspective. Assisting with answers, figuring out kind of how we can, converse and help them navigate through knowledge and find the actual answer to the question versus a lot of lengthy documents. helping them draft emails, helping them summarize, chat conversations or drafting chat responses. So all this is really, summarizing, getting knowledge or creating content, as I said, right? I mean, that's really kind of been where the value's at. But the value is already a lot, right? So before we get to futures, in the current state, we're already taking significant amounts of real world cost and effort out of service by providing co-pilots. So 12 to 16% handle time. So the time taken to handle chat cases in Microsoft support goes down by 12 to 16%. Well, if you think about it, 12 to 16%, if a chat case in a complicated, I don't know, SQL Server support ticket goes down by 12 to 16%, you're talking about, half an hour call potentially, right? These are complicated, long running calls. You're taking lots of minutes out now, right? And those are minutes that could be spent doing something for another customer. So this all comes back to, great experience in the end. It's not just about cost saving, but it's tangible, right? We can measure the change and we can measure the impact. And in fact, we're providing tools in our platform when we launch Copilot for an agent where we can actually start to see, the difference between advisors who are using the Copilot and the handle time, for example, as one of the metrics we might check, and those who don't. And you can start to then, really evaluate and prove that there's some value in AI. It's not just a toy or a great interesting demo, but something the business actually gets value from. So we're saving time, they're escalating less, and they don't need support from tier 2, tier 3 as much as they did before, which is all great to customers who are trying to get support and don't want to wait for all of that stuff to happen, right? So this is marked. And when we extrapolate this out to the industry, right, to banks, to telecoms companies, to all of the different industries that are out there, there's a huge amount of opportunity. So that's level set. That's just where we are. I've spent the first half just kind of saying, well, here's where we are. We launched this thing. We presupposed that AI was going to change the game. We can measure that it has, and it is. That's fantastic, right? We can build better bots. We can build assistants for advisors. Now what? So the second half, we'll talk about where we're investing. And we have a pretty substantial team in the Dynamics and especially in the service side of the Dynamics engineering team. I mean, we're talking about thousands of engineers. I'm not allowed to disclose how many thousands, but it's many thousands of engineers, like really smart people and product people working on, the next features that are coming. And there's two kind of main areas that we're investing into. So number one, contact center is a pretty new product in market, and there are still some fundamentals and features that we need to provide, right? So they're just the sort of, I guess the meat and potatoes of contact center, right? The things you have to be able to do to be considered a kind of a mature platform. And so we're working very hard on bringing that up to speed. And the second is kind of more of the investment in where AI goes. And this idea of AI agents and learning loops is driving a huge amount of change, a lot of excitement, and also quite a bit of differentiation in terms of the way we're thinking about AI in this space as well, right? And differentiation, as in having a solution that has features that are different from your competition. It's a nice place to be. So we're really trying to sort of get ahead in terms of the way we're thinking. That investment's produced a whole bunch of great things already. Thomas demoed a bunch of them. Maybe someone earlier on demoed some other bits and pieces. I hear Tricia's going to be on next as well, so she'll probably show you a few things. But all kinds of things, I mean, have come into the solution. So Power Virtual Agents was text only. Following the Nuance acquisition, we've added voice, into PVA, but obviously now into what we're calling Copilot Studio. A whole bunch of features to handle DTMF. Press 1, press 2, press 3, because people still need it. And if you're trying to collect a long number, it's still quite a lot easier on a handset to type the phone number, right, in digits than it is to say it. So those things still happen. Handling noise detection in an effective way, being able to tune for that. Things like speech sensitivity settings. Having custom natural language options. So if you don't want to use the PVA or Copilot Studio language understanding options, you can now go to Azure and you can use Azure language understanding, and there's more to come there as well. So a whole bunch of different things. I'm not going to read them all out, right? But this is really the tip of the iceberg and a kind of very high level summary of some of the features that have come out over the course of last year. And so that's great. That's a big step forward. Two of the big things, however, which are in the works and getting close, and here's a sneaky peek. And one of those was a question someone asked earlier, which was about outbound, I think at the end of Thomas's session prior to mine. So when we're talking about outbound, we don't just mean making an advisor on our desktop or workspace making a single call. In customer service and contact centers, that generally means making lots of calls, right? Calling a segment of customers, a list of customers, with a strategy, right? To figure out how I'm going to call them, what I should do if they answer, what should I do if they don't, how do I manage it, and how do I follow up on that? And usually that's a goal, right? So either that's proactive service, or maybe it's callbacks and scheduled callbacks from one channel or another, or it can be telesales. So again, here's where service and sales really overlap, or it could be telemarketing, right? So I want to tell you about a new product or service, or I want to sell you something. So they're all use cases, cross rooms of the house. And so when we start to look at proactive engagement, it's not just about service anymore. It's about service, sales, marketing together. And so here's where we have to think differently from a product perspective, because we need these sort of cross room journeys to work, right? We need to be able to do a dialer, which is a channels or a customer service or a contact center kind of thing, but we need to do it for a salesperson who needs certain artifacts on the desktop, and they're probably still dealing with an opportunity of some kind, right? So how do we kind of enact that in software? So we are doing proactive engagement. It's in private preview now. There's a small selection of customers. It's built on actually customer insights. So if we think about what customer insights has been doing in marketing, you can create a segment or a list. You can use Copilot to create a segment or a list for you if you want to do it in natural language. And then you can create a journey. So what you see on the screenshot here is really a customer insight journey map for a flight delay. So it's, what happens if we attempt an outbound voice call and it's not answered, right? Maybe I should follow up with an SMS that indicates something to you instead, right? So you can create these journeys across multiple transactions. And in the future, we'll start to see customer insights journey used across inbound journeys in similar ways, I'm sure as well. So here's where we get to journey management, using tools we already have, but we're actually using it to make lots and lots of outbound calls. We're also introducing dial modes. So here it's not just about sending that call or record to an agent desktop so they can click dial. We can do that, right? That's called preview dialing. We can send it to a Copilot for an automated experience. But moving forward into next year, we'll also have algorithm-based dialing. So so-called progressive or predictive dialing, where actually the system is making lots of calls. And then when they're answered, we qualify they're answered, we check it's not an answering machine, and only then we send it to an advisor in the contact center, right, to actually deal with. And that's a massive time saving, right? So this is how high volume applications work in contact centers. So yes, that's coming. It's already there in private preview, and you should expect this to hit the streets during this year. And this is a really important piece for contact centers. For any of you who are positioning contact center to a customer, there is an expectation in a lot of organizations that we can do outbound like this. And so, yes, it's coming. So that's hopefully great news for those of you who are getting your feet wet in the contact center space. The second sneaky peek, it's probably the worst kept sneaky peek ever, right? Is there's an area that we've had partner solutions for and we have connectors for, is workforce management. And so forecasting, planning and scheduling, so we can figure out what the demand on a business is going to be, how many calls, how many chats, how many WhatsApps are we going to get over the next month. We can model that, and we can start to understand what skills will be required, and therefore, how many people should we schedule, and we create schedules for our teams so they're actually logging in at the right time and they're where they should be, right? So that's what workforce management is doing. So a lot of tools here, and it's a very mature space. But again, we're in private preview with a select number of customers already with our own workforce management tool. And again, in the sort of first half to the middle of this year, you're going to get the announcements in terms of this becoming an available solution. We may go into a public preview mode, actually, where you can get your hands on it before that as well. So again, workforce management's another key tick in the boxes from a contact center solution, and there's a lot more to come here. So getting into workforce engagement management, which is training, quality assurance, making sure we're scoring how well an advisor is actually doing on calls. Are they answering it in the right way? Are they personable? Do they know what they're talking about? All of that kind of thing, right? Are they adhering to policies? A lot of that is scored in a contact center by their supervisors, by an admin, and there are tools to achieve that. And so, that's exactly where we're looking to take this as we move forward. So, really exciting kind of steps in the right direction in terms of, filling those kind of important solution areas so we can make sure we've got a complete solution for the contact center space that's robust. So those two sneaky peeks, I think, are kind of probably as much as I can share today, because we haven't yet sort of talked about dates in a public forum, but given we're all friends here and we're all kind of inside the tent in terms of dynamics, I'll share that much with you just to kind of reassure you that there's a lot going on in the background and some pretty big new capabilities that are coming as well. Right, moving from the sort of fundamentals side, there's also the other piece, right, which is, okay, AI, big deal. We've made a big splash about co-pilots, more generally in the consumer space. I've just shared with you some of the results we've seen from co-pilots in our own customer service environment that some of our leading customers are already benefiting from. Thomas showed you a demo of how to create a simplistic co-pilot, right, in Norwegian. We can add generative AI and answer questions and lots of other cool stuff into those environments already, right, into Copilot Studio. We've also got co-pilots down at the agent desktop. I already showed you sort of how that's broadly looking and working and roughly what they're doing. So what next? Where are we thinking? Where are the big kind of changes we can make now, using this amazing technology? What is it we can start to really rethink? Because we talked about it, and it can't just be a slide, that we're really looking to reinvent how contact centers work, right? And so that's really where the next kind of phase comes from. And this idea of reinforcement learning is incredibly important. One thing all of our solutions do really well, when they're up and running in an operation, is they generate a ton of data, right? And all that data is obviously going into Dataverse. We know a huge amount about who's calling, what time they're calling, how long they're speaking for, what they're talking about. We're transcribing all of our voice calls. We're getting all of those transcripts from the digital media. How can we use that information? How can we then apply the way that information is used, right? So how can we take what we've learned from a human interaction, right, on the right-hand side of this diagram, right, in the assisted or employee learning loop? How can we improve their experience for a co-pilot? On the left-hand side, for customers, we're providing these automated solutions. So we're already using data and tools to help improve their experience. How can they benefit each other is really the question here, right? So can we take what we know that employees are doing really well and use that to improve parts of the solution in a more automated way elsewhere? And that's really what we mean by reinforcement learning, right? The experts sitting at the desktop, sitting at customer service workspace, who are bankers, they're experts in handling calls, are being inventive, right? They're getting things that maybe isn't in the knowledge base. It maybe isn't handled by the bot. It maybe isn't being assisted by the co-pilot, but they are experienced. They know how to handle them. And then they do, because they're trying to help customers. And that all goes into all of this data that we see. So that throws off an amazing opportunity for us to automate learning in the contact center. So that's really the next step, the next obvious step that we have to take. And one of the mechanisms for doing this, and there's been maybe we've spoken about it today. I haven't been in all of the sessions, but there's a sort of a different and a concept that we've been talking about a lot called AI agents. So whereas a co-pilot is really more of a personal experience, right? It's more of a private or personal thing that I might ask questions of and talk to, either a consumer co-pilot or in my business applications. Like the one I showed you earlier, right? So I can ask for some knowledge or ask it to do something, execute a workflow, whatever it might be. But that's really a one-to-one relationship between a user and a co-pilot. Agents are a bit different. They're really working on behalf of the business or a process, right? And they're autonomous. They might actually be doing things without us asking in the background, and usually against the goal. So an agent's really working in the background to try and achieve something, and it's using information. It might be interacting with one or more people. We might be giving it, a steer. It might be informing us of what it's doing, right? So there is an interaction, but it's a one-to-many interaction between an autonomous agent and a lot of people potentially, right? Or one person could be dealing with a lot of agents. So it's very different in that kind of a paradigm. And Satya's actually talked about these quite a bit as well, right? So if you're up to speed and listening to what Satya's saying on LinkedIn these days, there was a great video interview of him, I think just before Christmas in December, and he made some very big statements during that interview. The way we've been building business applications fundamentally hasn't changed, right, for quite a long period of time. So a lot of business systems, essentially CRUD systems, right? So where we're interacting with data, create, read, update, delete data, and we're overlaying that with some form of business logic. He stated clearly that AI agents will directly manage a lot of that in moving forward. And that's going to change the way we build applications, and the way we interact with data, therefore, is going to be quite drastically different. So think about it. Today, we have all of these workspaces. We have a lot of fields on those workspaces, right? We spend a lot of time filling in those fields, making sure that the data is appropriate for the field type, all of this kind of logic that goes into us getting data into or out of these systems. Well, fundamentally, with an agent, we could actually be talking to something instead, right? And having a natural conversation, or even more than that, that's a co-pilot. Even more than that, the agent could actually be interfacing of its own accord, right? Filling in all of that back-end data based on what's going on without us having to do any work. And so that is fundamentally a very different way to think. And Microsoft have taken a stance of really doubling down on that. So Satya in the UK announced in October 10 agents that we're building, and 3 of those are very, very relevant to the service environment. So case management agent, customer intent agent, and knowledge management agent really impact the way we think about how service will be managed moving forward. So this is not really about the consumer customer experience. It will impact certainly the advisor or the internal employee experience, but it also really impacts the job of work of maintaining, managing, updating these solutions on the inside of the business as well, right? The operate experience. And so that's really sort of next to change, I think, in terms of what AI is really going to do for us. So in customer service, these 3 AI agents are already starting to make us think about the way we manage these systems. So if we go back to the demo of Copilot Studio earlier on, the way you build a bot in Copilot Studio generally is you will create a topic or an intent, right? And that's a reason for contact. So I'm calling about my invoice. I'm calling to see if why my product hasn't arrived. All of these kinds of topics that you would build a bot for, right? And you create these intents or topics, and you have to figure out which ones you want to go and build for. But how do you know, right? We've got tools to do it. How do you know what you should go build? Well, normally you go and ask a bunch of people in your customer service or contact center operation, well, what are you struggling with? What do I think I can automate? What kind of topics do you think I should take away from people? Well, what customer intent agents designed to do is look at what your people are really doing, what kind of topics they're dealing with, and then automatically start to create these intents in the tool set, right? So when you're in your Copilot Studio tool, there's an intent being created. It's actually linked to a whole bunch of transcript information, a summary information of what is being handled, what people are doing with that, giving you clues as to how to go and build a bot in Copilot Studio, for example, right? So intent agents really mining all of that information, and it's starting to pre-automate and pre-create some of the answers to some of the things we need to then go and do. Knowledge management's working in a very similar way. It's looking at the knowledge base. It's figuring out the questions that people are answering that aren't in the knowledge base today from an expert, for example, where sentiment could be high. And I can see in the case notes that was actually the accepted solution from a customer perspective. And it's mining all of that data to pre-generate new knowledge, suggest it to a knowledge manager in their dashboard, so they can basically go and say, okay, I'm going to edit that slightly, but then that's great. So the time to create and execute on new knowledge articles goes down, and hopefully the quality of knowledge in our systems goes up, right? We're not having to type all of this information and create these massive FAQs, which may or may not be relevant to an audience. Instead, we're using data to create highly relevant content, and an AI agent's doing that in the background, right? So that's an immensely powerful concept. And case management, handling case lifecycle, filling in the fields based on what was just discussed on the phone when we got the case, pre-filling all of that, and then managing the life cycle. Have we followed up with the customer with an email to say, is that resolved? Should I close the case? That's all human work today. Having an AI agent that can manage that life cycle, manage that communication background, is also a massive time saver. So this is across both contact center and customer service that we start to impact change. So quick 2-minute video, show you bring it to life, show you what it looks like and what it's doing, and then we'll kind of talk about what the value of that is, and then talk about who's doing some of these things.
Autonomous agents can help reduce the manual burden
Is
on
audio
service
on?
reps, as well as
Thumbs
enable
up?
evergreen customer self-service and assisted service.
No?
Let's
Yes.
see the case management, customer intent, and customer knowledge management agents in action. I'm a senior service rep, and I've just received an escalation for a new issue. Instead of having to manually create a case, I see the case management agent has already generated one. It identified relevant case details based on the customer's history and the transcript to auto-populate the appropriate fields. With Copilot, I'm also provided with a summary and other information to help quickly get me up to speed. And if I need a little more help, it will jumpstart collaboration with Microsoft Teams. Meanwhile, while I work, the customer intent agent is continuously learning from me and our other service reps how to identify and resolve this and other complex customer issues as they arise. It discovers new intents from customer conversations across all channels by analyzing case notes, transcripts, and summaries, mapping issues to corresponding resolutions that the agent maintains in a library. In parallel, the customer knowledge management agent ensures knowledge articles are kept perpetually current, automatically identifying opportunities to update existing articles or draft new ones based on the discovered insights. The agent autonomously drafts and publishes the content. And since I have oversight, all I have to do is approve the update. And whenever I need a little help diagnosing a customer issue, Copilot will proactively surface prompts fueled by the customer intent agent, as well as the latest guidance harnessed by the customer knowledge management agent. Though for this case, I'm ready to wrap up. Once I finish the chat with the customer, the case management agent will provide a summary and continue managing any follow-up needed for this and my other open cases. Here, the next day, alerting me to an email from the customer. It proactively drafts responses, which I have the option to review and edit before they're sent. Otherwise, the agent will continue monitoring and autonomously responding as needed, until I'm prompted it's time to close the case. Once I confirm, the agent automatically generates wrap-up notes, fills in the resolution details, and closes it for me. Now, the next time a customer reaches out, our self-service tools like chatbots and IVR are ready, dynamically armed with the latest intents and knowledge content, which means fewer escalations for me.
Awesome. Raz, you have your hand up. I don't know how long you've had your hand up for, but I probably should acknowledge that you might have a question.
Sorry there, Seb. It was just to let you know that we could hear you, so that's great.
Hand up to hear me. Okay, gotcha, Raz. Thank you for the feedback. Appreciate it. I was hoping for a thumbs up rather than a hand up, but I do that all the time as well. So, hey, the Teams folks put those buttons too close together, in my view. It's pretty interesting. I mean, so the first time Jonathan, I can send you a link to that video, by the way, so that those videos are available on YouTube. So I'll send some links so you can see them. And there's a bunch of individual videos that go into a bit more depth on each of those agents as well. So I will share that. The first time I saw it, I kind of, scratched my head a little bit, I guess, and thought it feels a little bit like science fiction, right, in a way. So the idea of a co-pilot, I get. We've gotten used to that quite quickly. The fact that I can, go to a co-pilot, ask a question, I can click a button and get an email drafted for me and all of those kinds of things. Fantastic. It's amazing how quickly we get used to what was, in and of itself science fiction a few years ago. The idea that starts to become proactive and working in the background, it made me scratch my head a little bit for a little while. But the thing is, in the end, it's really kind of combining the idea of a co-pilot with workflow in a sense, right? It's workflow working in the background that can deal with the vagaries of human data. And human data and contact center data and conversational data is quite woolly, right? It's not like a Power Automate flow. When your inputs don't match, right, or you haven't got the data you expected in your flow, generally your flow fails. The thing with autonomous agents is they're able to deal with that kind of fuzzy data. They're able to deal with that. And that's kind of, I think, in my mind, one of the key differences where this technology kind of really, steps forward. It's a lot less brittle in the sense of being able to execute on these kind of workflows based on that woolly data. So again, what we're really doing here is we're learning from one part of the operation through data and then enacting change in other parts of the organization, right? So create new intents for the bot, create new knowledge articles that basically ensure that the bot potentially or the advisor could answer these new questions more effectively, more quickly, and ensure that cases are managed in a more effective way so forms are filled in more effectively. So how do we know that, what we're looking for here in the end, and this is really what's driving the service industry, is more of the self-service that's effective in answering the call, right, and less of the assisted service, but also making that happen without us having to do all of the work to train this huge co-pilots or bots that are basically, very, very large. It's almost unwieldy to be able to do that. But when we use data to drive the bus, that gives us a lot of opportunity to have self-service that actually really does get a lot smarter over time and is aimed at the right things. So I think that's kind of the really big deal here, right? It's going to drive a lot of change in terms of how we do these things, but also the results in terms of where we get to. And again, back to the Microsoft support, right? How we test and learn, customer zero, the agents are already in there, right? We're already evaluating 2 of those 3 agents in customer support at some scale. So our journey to get there, we've decommissioned Genesis. I showed that in 2023. We've got to the point where we've got from all of the different systems we've had, and we're using our own Copilot Studio environment to create self-service. We've now deployed autonomous agents towards the end of last year. And are starting to get real feedback as to how well they're working and what value they're bringing. So these are prelim numbers, right? I'm not going out, making a big splash yet. We haven't done a big study, but sneaky peek. The time saved to create a new knowledge article when we're using the agents, 35 to 40% faster creating knowledge, right? 25% improvement in case fields being filled incorrectly when we're using the case management agent. Time saved to follow up on cases, actually kind of really closing cases, following up and asking if the customer's okay, because it's semi-automated at a 30% improvement, and a reduction in the days to close cases. We're actually getting things done faster, right? So they're having a meaningful change. And while these aren't really sort of, these numbers are significant, right? They're probably trailing indicators. They don't really give us how much more we're able to deal with or how much less effort it is. We'd like to get there, but as early numbers, we're seeing significant improvement in terms of some of these KPIs we're tracking, which is really encouraging. And we're also learning a lot about how these agents need to work, right? So the feedback to engineering to make sure that when we go to general availability in the first half of this year, which is when they're scheduled to hit the market, to hit the street, they will have improved as a result of the launch into the contact center at Microsoft. And really, it's that usage that drives all of this, right? So in the end, copilots and AI, whilst it's new, we've made a lot of noise about it. We've got nearly 3 million monthly active users using copilots in the business, in Dynamics and Power, right? In our Biz Apps stack, in our Biz Apps solution. So this is not Copilot in Bing or Copilot in Office or any of those things. That's nearly 3 million active users using Copilot on a regular basis in our business context solutions. So, it's really resonated well, and people are coming back and reusing these solutions because they add that kind of measurable value, not only to them in their everyday lives, but then to the business in terms of a lot of these efficiency gains. So, it's gone from promise, it's gone from theory and very much into practice incredibly quickly. And I think a lot of companies are choosing us. They've chosen us for a long time, for varying reasons, but what we're doing in the AI space and some of these kinds of innovations we're bringing are leading a lot of brands to kind of really double down on Microsoft in this space, right? And what I will say about contact center is it's a very mature space, right? There's some big vendors there who have been doing this for a very long time, have a lot of brand equity, and we're pretty new. So coming in with a differentiated story, coming in with something that actually really does add value in a different way, is incredibly important. And a few of the brands, I think one of them was mentioned earlier, but doing contact center with us at some scale now, I'll just draw attention because there's a few different ways that people are doing this with us. The Internal Revenue Service, that's the tax office in the US, right? They're answerable and dealing with customer service from about 300 million people in the United States. They have a pretty significant demand. We're talking billions of calls a year. They're using Copilot to handle automation and self-service. So the demo Thomas did, tools that he showed, billions of calls, right? And that's for, you know, a very, very important and very sensitive workload under high data privacy conditions, right? The IRS is a very serious organization. So high scale business, massive results in terms of automation of the kind of things that people are asking about their tax affairs, for example. 1-800-Flowers, complete contact center handling voice and digital interactions and co-pilots. So as a retailer, they handled millions of calls during the Christmas period. So they're cut over onto the Dynamics 365 contact center. Thousands of numbers actually got reduced down into, you know, as part of our implementations. They had lots of different numbers people were using to contact, as well as 1-800-Flowers. So we've taken a lot of complexity out of the business. Lenovo, pure from the CRM space, added contact center. So that's really sort of one of those composable paths, right? You start with customer service CRM and you add channels of contact and contact center on. And so they're using contact center for their support operation globally. And we heard a little bit about Virgin Money, sort of one of my favorite UK customers right now, who started with a build a bot ready, their Copilot assistant for handling, you know, their customers' banking affairs, but also they're doing all the digital engagement beyond that. So if you need to talk to someone, having dealt with Ready, you'll go through to contact center, right? And they use, you know, sort of using all of the tools on the contact center desktop to fulfill that across the channels that they're managing. So we've got some really good early traction. And I think that sort of, you know, differentiated view on how AI is going to change the way we think about customer service is really driving them towards considering the solution. So I'm hoping today gave you, from me at least, a, you know, as well as all of the demos and what the product looks like today, a bit of a snapshot into how we're thinking, how this market's really thinking, and how we're moving forwards to kind of really enable the sort of capabilities that we're going to need to, you know, to continue to, you know, get customers or organizations interested to use our solutions moving forward. So I think that's, you know, that's about it for me. I was going to play a video. Don't have a ton of time, right? So it's really, you know, we've got a great vision for this. We've got Copilot in just about everything that's adding value, and we're built for high scale. And we've got some big customers with, you know, thousands of users who are now adopting on platform. You know, that's all happened in the last 6 months since launch on the contact center side. So if you guys have any questions, we've got a minute or so. I'll stick around for a little while and answer them on the chat whilst the next presenter's presenting, if you like, as well. So thanks for the invite. From 11 o'clock last night. I'm hoping I kind of stepped into the breach and added some value to your day. And yeah, I mean, you know, keep spending time with us, and hopefully we'll keep adding value to the way you're building these solutions moving forward.
That was fantastic. That was really, really good, Seth, because that was non-stop. That was completely non-stop. Full of information and guidance really as to what to expect. So basically, I think you've answered everyone's questions, and there doesn't seem to be any questions, just a lot of optimism really. So well,
that's what we like, Raz. Optimism. Yeah. It's great. It's what we need.
I mean, look, it's very exciting. It's very, very exciting in this space, and we've seen a lot of some of the legends in this space from the Microsoft ecosystem when it comes to contact. It's been an evolution for all of us, right? You know, working in most of the Dynamics customers consultants out there work in a contact center environment, but specifically contact center capability There's always been very a hybrid approach to solutions. It feels like what's emerging is a true contact center solution, whereby previously there was only a handful of people who could actually deliver those based on very specialized skills, and that still is that still is the case. But what we're finding now is that it feels like a lot more Microsoft consultants are becoming specialized in this area of contact center, far more than what we had previously, because obviously there were gaps in the product and in capabilities. So it's really interesting to see how the Microsoft community will grow in this space and address these contact center challenges that you've been describing with these tools and products that are being announced here. So I really want to thank you once again, Seb, for taking time out.
Total pleasure. Thanks for the invite, Raz. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
And hope everyone has a good rest of session. But yeah, I'll stick around. So if you want to ask some questions on the chat, feel free. I'll be around for 5 or 10 minutes now as well.
Thank you so much, Seb. Excellent.
Alrighty.
Wow.
Take care.
Okay, thank you, Seb.
Thanks.
So look, guys, so it's been action packed, but we still got lots to do, lots to get through, and we've got none of that. I know you've been waiting for Tricia. We've got Tricia online. Let's just make sure Tricia has got the full capabilities to be able to present. So let's make sure. There we go. Okay. So Tricia, if you could try sharing your screen, please.
I can speak, and then
yes, we can hear you. We can hear you, Tricia. So whilst Tricia sets up, for those who don't know Tricia, if you don't know Tricia, then you should obviously. But Tricia works for Avanade, and she is very in the trenches when it comes to contact center and customer service solutions. This is what she now dedicates all her efforts to. I knew Tricia before then. She was more into the Dynamics development space and DevOps, but for the past many number of years now, she really represents, the new breed of contact center experts, and she really does specialize in this field. So, Tricia, it's a huge pleasure to have you here today, and especially on the topic that you're covering is definitely one that we all need to know about on AI configuration options for customer service and contact center. So, without further ado, Tricia, we can see your screen. So over to you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Raz, and thank you, Seb, for jumping in yet again last second. I'm going to try and break it. So I don't have any slides. Let's just be very clear. What I thought I would do is I would demonstrate how easy it is to configure the Dynamics 365 contact center, starting from a trial or a see a lot of hands up. I just put in the chat. Just starting from a trial or an installation all the way through to getting a phone call being routed successfully using skill-based routing. So shall we? Let's give that a go. Sound is bad. Yeah, it's not great. Let me actually do me a favor. Can I rejoin? Sometimes that does work, Raz. I'm just going to rejoin the call.
Sure, you can. Yes, please do, because the sound is coming through distorted a little bit. So, yeah, feel free to do that. Okay, guys. Whilst Tricia joins, feel free to drop any questions in the chat. Wow, guys, it's been a roller coaster of a day, hasn't it? Lots of new things to learn today. So for people, for the newbies in the room, who are new to Dynamics 365 customer services, you've obviously got to learn basically a lot, not only the fundamentals, but especially the new best of breed features of customer service and contact center. But the truth of the matter is, I think a lot of the well-established consultants have actually been learning a lot today as well, including myself, on these contact center capabilities.
Okay, can you hear me? Is that better from a voice perspective?
That is better. That is better, yes.
Okay, great. Okay, let's try this again. 1 second. I will actually leave my video off just to kind of conserve the little bandwidth that I have, okay? But as I mentioned, I'm going to basically demonstrate how we can start from zero to hero from a perspective of setting up a contact center. Someone asked the question, what does the contact center experience look like if you don't have customer service? To be honest, it is literally just like everything, again, without customer service. I'm going to demonstrate that actually now. First of all, we're going to start by going into Azure, right? I'm going to start with creating a resource group. And the reason I'm doing this is because I'm actually going to do it a little bit the long way around. There's actually an easier way, and I'm going to show you how that easy way is. But the reason I'm doing this is because I always believe Global Bootcamp. I always believe that it's easier if you know how to do everything, which means that if something does go wrong, you know how to fix it. So I'm going to create a resource group which will keep everything together. The first thing I'm going to do is create an Azure Communication Service resource. Now, Azure Communication Service resource is going to be created in the region that's closest to me, simply because it will make sure that the voice quality is unlike the one I have currently. It is, performance. Okay. So, what am I doing? Sorry. Let me just type in here and grab. Yep, there you go, communication service. And I'm going to basically create one here tied to the resource group that I have created in a location that's closest to my customers or closest to where most of them will be. So I'm going to basically first, my location will be United Kingdom because that's where I am. And I'm going to create this now. By the way, if you have any questions, please feel to put it in the chat because no presentation, it's just a whistle stop, really just going into it just to show you how this can be set up. I do also have a video on this on my blog if you would like to just sit down, watch it, and pause at any time. So as this deployment is in progress, I'm going to explain what we're going to do next. After we create the ACS resource, we're going to be able to create or acquire some numbers. Another reason I'm doing it this way instead of actually doing it the shortcut way, which is just to go into the Dynamics instance and basically acquire numbers, is there may be some instances where you might need to bulk purchase numbers. If you bulk purchase numbers, then you will be asked to fill out a form that is a part of ACS, and the ACS team will then provide those numbers. That's how you can configure it through here. The second thing is that if you have direct routing, for example, you would configure direct routing through ACS like so. And I'm going to show you where that is. Typically, what we do is we interact with our voice infrastructure team. So, of course, as Raz mentioned, there's so many different, I swear this was actually so much faster yesterday. I don't know what's going on. But we interact with our voice infrastructure team. All they do is implement Teams. And that is something, because of course it's using the Teams backend. ACS is basically the web service that sits on top of Teams. It's a public web service that sits on top of Teams and telephony, right? So I'm just going to go into telephony and SMS and phone numbers, and I'm going to get one new phone number. So because it is using Teams infrastructure, if you have the capability or know-how of how to configure Teams, you will also then know how to configure direct routing, which is interacting with a third-party carrier instead of using Microsoft as your carrier. So here, although we chose the UK as our ACS resource, it doesn't mean that we're tied to using the UK for our phone number. You can still search for other countries as well. There might be some instances where you might actually need one number in the US, one number in the UK, one number in Switzerland, etc. And that is entirely possible to configure. You're only able to configure one ACS resource per Dynamics instance. And when you basically say, oh, what about load balancing, et cetera, well, Dynamics does take care of that for you. So it will do like failovers, et cetera. But it is also important that you do plan for your own disaster recovery also. Okay, this is something that from a team's perspective, they're quite used to. So they often plan for that in terms of, okay, maybe you need like a failover SBC. What's an SBC is? It's a session border controller, which is responsible for directing the voice traffic to the ACS resource. Okay, so at this point in time, I am buying, or I'm trying to buy the number. It's taking, okay, it's still loading. So once I've purchased this number, it will then be available for me to configure. Now, in terms of configuration, once I've got the number, that I will be able to use it, but I won't be able to do call recording or any of the lovely fancy stuff. For that, you're going to need an event grid subscription. And I'm going to configure that as soon as this allows me to purchase. I'm going to refresh and see if it helps. I think it might actually end my purchase, to be honest. Yeah, okay, let's do that again. So I'm basically going to go choose UK because I want a UK number. It is definitely cheaper for me. And I am going to go to add to cart, purchase a phone number, and click on to cart, purchase that phone number. There you go. And click on next. Now it thinks I have to. It's fine. I will pay for it. That's cool. So now I'm purchasing my phone numbers. And once that's purchased, we're then going to go on to associating or creating what we call an app registration key. Now, the app registration is needed because that's what's going to link Dynamics to your ACS resource as well as the event grid subscriptions. Okay. So once that does that, I'm going to duplicate the screen and move on to app registration. Now, when creating the app registration, there isn't anything like special that I need to do. So it's literally just an app registration. I don't need to, I also need to make myself an owner as well. Otherwise, it will not work. Okay. So here, I'm going to create an app registration now. I'm going to basically call it app reg. By the way, if you know me, you know I do not do naming right. I have to think about this so long and hard. Not the best at naming things. So I'm going to basically make myself the owner. So that's something that you need to think about. Like, who should you make an owner? Probably not your actual account, but an account that is used for this, for example, like a service account or something like that. I'm just going to add myself here. Okay, great. So now we have this. Now what I need from this is I need to take the client ID and the tenant ID, and I will use this later. Okay, so now that I've created the client and the tenant ID, let's go back. Do we have numbers? Let's go into the ACS resource and just check that those numbers were correctly purchased. And then if they are, great. We have everything that we need for now in ACS. So that's the first part. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go into Dynamics, and then we're going to link the ACS resource to our Dynamics resource. To do that, there are a couple of things that we're going to need. We're going to need the connection string. We're going to need our app ACS resource name and the ACS resource ID. Let's get that started now whilst that figures itself out. So here we are in Dynamics. We are going to go into the Contact Center Admin Center. In the Contact Center Admin Center, we're going to go to Channels, which is going to be on the left. And in Channels, that allows us to see all the channels that you have available. I only have voice, right? So I'm going to go down to phone numbers, which is where I'm able to add or manage my phone numbers. Okay, so if I could hear, when you create a new trial, any contact center trial or a new customer service with contact center trial, you get 60 minutes for free. So if you saw Thomas's session, that's why he didn't want you to call, because you do get 60 minutes for free with the number that Microsoft provides. In order to connect ACS, which will give you unlimited numbers, of course, you have to pay for them. You've got to end the trial. There's no two ways about it. You have got to end the trial. Okay, whilst that ends, let's check. Why is this taking so slow? I am so sorry, guys. Like my Wi-Fi is horrible. Okay, let's try ending this trial again. Although I think it did say that it was ending. Perfect. So now this is ending. We're good to go. So the first thing we're going to do, or second thing after ending the trial, is we're going to get started, and then we're going to associate it to using, I guess, an existing resource. Now, have a look at this. Remember I said there's an actual easier way? So all you had to do is basically create the event grid, pop it in here, specify the subscription, and to be honest, it would have been faster. But I'm going to basically say, we've had a team, they've basically connected, the voice team have come in, they've basically set up direct routing with my ACS resource. What do I do now? What's the next step? This is the next step. I'm going to use the existing resource, and I'm going to pray that those numbers have been created, because it is not coming through for some reason. Just refreshing. Okay, great. So we do have our two numbers, which is awesome. We're going to now go into the settings area, and we're going to go into properties. So properties is where we're finding most of the information that we need. So if we go here, the first thing that you'll notice it's going to ask for is the resource name and the resource ID. This is where you'll get them. The resource name is here. The resource ID is here. Connection string. Where do I get the connection string? The connection string is taken from keys. So in keys, you'll see this connection string. Just pop the first one out, put that here. And now it's asking me for the event grid app ID. The event grid app ID is the client ID from the app registration. By the way, I am probably going to delete this after, so it's fine to be up. Now, I acknowledge that this ACS resource can only be connected to one Dynamics 365 organization. So as I mentioned, one ACS resource, one org. Now, as that's being created, what I can do is, conscious of time, I'm going to go in, I'm going to give myself a license. So I don't have a license for this account. I'm basically going to go into manage security roles, and I'm going to give myself the necessary license that will allow me to open the customer service workspace as well as make and receive calls. So that is the omnichannel agent. I want to be an omnichannel admin because I'm configuring it, as well as the supervisor role actually allows you to see like reports, as well as do like view, view like monitor calls, consult, and monitor calls, do any consultations, force close calls, etc. Okay. So here we have a successful configuration of ACS to Dynamics, which is great. Now, the reason that we did it this way is the event grid. Now, you'll notice it's popping this out. That's totally normal. That's fine. What we now need to do is, if we go into advanced, it's going to give us the information that we need in order to configure the event grid subscription. So we're going to go back here, and then we're going to go to we need to create the system topic. So in event grid, let's go and create a system topic. Now, the system topic that we need needs to be associated to ACS. So it says topic types. We're going to look for Azure Communication Services. Here you go. And we're going to select my resource. We're going to then select my resource group, which is this one, and the resource, which is the one that we just created. We can name it, you say, system topic. And then we will review and create. Now here, what we'll need to do after this is we'll need to create a subscription. We need to create 2 subscriptions specifically. And that's just because we're doing voice. If we were configuring SMS, WhatsApp, like I think someone asked, oh yeah, WhatsApp is available through ACS. Now it is. And you can see that this is the endpoint to which you will use the SMS web endpoint. But where do you actually configure that? Where do you add that? Well, if you go to the resource, you'll now see the event grid or the event subscription. You can then subscribe to the necessary events that will trigger based on the different events that's happening through ACS. So this one is going to be called recording. And we're going to basically say we're going to filter this based on the recording file status is updated. Now, the endpoint is going to be a webhook, and we're going to pull the endpoint from here. So we're going to copy this, and we're going to paste this into configure an endpoint. And before I always do this, I always forget to ensure that we're enabling this. And this is where you're going to need that app registration and client ID. So client ID goes below. So don't get mixed up like I always do. Put them in the right places. Okay, and then we just click on create. And then we're going to create another subscription. That subscription is going to be for incoming calls. This one will have and 4. So we create a new event subscription. And that's going to be incoming calls. And the event type is going to be filtered to incoming call. Fairly obvious, I'd say. And now after that, you'll notice that we haven't actually pulled in our phone numbers. You can pull in your phone numbers at any time. You don't actually have to wait for me to do that. But now I'm going to sync those phone numbers Azure. So I'm going to proceed and I'm going to sync them. Now they're going to be pulled in from Azure and then be created here in Dynamics 365. So you'll see the phone numbers, they've come in. Now, the first thing it says is it's ready for setup. It means, yep, you can configure your voice channel now, which is great. Before we configure the voice channel, though, there are a couple of things that I want to do. I want to go and I have given myself a user, right? Okay, great. So what I want to do is I want to create a queue. So in my setup, what I've done is I have created a bot. That bot gives generic answers about the Dynamics Contact Center. And because of that, what I want to do is I want to say if there is a licensing error, a licensing question, it should go to a particular queue. If there is a technical question, it should go to another queue. So I'm going to basically say licensing inquiries here, and it's going to be a voice queue specifically. And you can specify the queue priority, like in terms of how the queues are prioritized for work. And we're going to basically create another queue. And another queue. You'll notice I didn't add myself as a user, and that's because I want to show something. But here, I'm going to go into Copilot Studio first, okay? I'm in the right environment, and I'm going to go to the bot that I created yesterday, which is my DCC help bot kind of thing. So DCC Assist. And the reason I'm doing that is I want to kind of just check on the variables. So any variable that you create is actually available to be used for routing purposes, notification purposes, or even to pre-populate on the form if you're going to be using macros, etc. So I do the topics I've created because I'm basically going to use each topic as a idea, and I basically created licensing. And I've created roadmap. Okay, great. So if I go back to here, I'm going to basically say map and green. And I'm going to choose voice. And to be honest, that has the same priority. It's like quite next one. Okay, great. So that's that one. Now, to be honest, I was going to do skills. I'm going to show you where to do skills, but I'm not going to go into the configuration of skills anymore. So if I go to user management, you will have skills. Now, with skills, you can create skills. You also have the skills hub, which gives you like a more rounded view of the skills, and you can configure them and associate them to bookings. And if you're familiar with field service, it's actually using the same tables in terms of bookable resource, etc. So here, I'm going to basically say someone needs support with ACS. That's a skill. That's great. Say close. Somebody needs support with dynamics. That's another skill, you know? So these are skills that people have. Note, I haven't yet signed them to anyone. Now, out of the box, Dynamics comes with what you call capacity, as well as capacity profiles. Now, a capacity profile gives you the ability to specify the number of items that someone's able to work on, but also the capacity allows you to define the units that someone can do. So for example, a voice call will always take all your units. You're not able to work on other things whilst you're working on that voice call. So using the enhanced user management, what I can do is I can at any time associate multiple things or associate multiple attributes to my user. So it's just a quick way to set up my user. By the way, if you're not seeing your user here, it's because you haven't given them the right role. So that's why I had to give myself the right omni-channel admin, or actually it needs to be omni-channel agent or supervisor in order to be seen in this table here. Okay, so now I'm going to basically add some skills to myself. So I'm going to add the ACS skill. I'm not going to add a proficiency, and I'm going to add my dynamic skill. Why not? Here. Okay, so let's save. The next thing I'm going to add to myself is I'm going to basically move myself and put myself into the licensing queue. And I'm going to basically, in the future, like create a what we call a fallback queue. And I'm going to do that when I create what's called the work stream. So let me give myself the inbound. I need the default inbound, default outbound, add to all, save. Okay, great. So now my user is ready to go. And because my user is ready to go, what I can now do is I can now go into my channels and I can now start setting up my voice channels. So I'm going to go to voice and create a new voice channel. There you go. Now, you could do this from the phone numbers area, right? This is another way to do it as well, and you can also do it through the work stream. But here I'm going to say global main number, and then basically click on next, and I'm going to create a new work stream. Now, the work stream is going to be say it's the main hotline for any assistance that you need for your dynamic. Now, I mentioned earlier, fallback queue. This is the queue that if it does not identify anything from a routing perspective, then it will fall back to this queue. And I basically call it the general. Okay. Then we're going to click on next, and we obviously brought in 2 phone numbers. I'm going to choose one of those phone numbers, and then I get to choose my language. Now, this language is important because you actually have, of course, you're selecting a language in Copilot Studio, and you're selecting a language here. What's the difference? Well, to be honest, what happens is the language here does influence Copilot Studio, as well as when you are doing like automated messaging. For example, you can configure, it's going to be here somewhere. You can configure different rules. For example, if it's out of hours, what do you want to say? If if it's handed off to an agent, what do you want to say? All of these things you can associate on the voice channel setup here. And that basically will be the accents of that you've chosen here, right? I've created 2 different bots, one which is a feedback bot. So the post-call survey I can select here, which means that after the call, I have the choice, and this is what's happening here. It will automatically go to that bot. Another alternative is to create another queue, put that bot in the queue, and then have the agent move the bot across to that queue should the customer say, okay, yes, verbal consent to giving feedback. Okay, of course, you can also have different voice prompts. So you have like these options as well. You can play it and hear. You can also choose a different wait music as well. I actually did have that, but we can come back and show where that can be done. You can add additional, so if you've some multi-channel bot, you can add more languages as well. So here you have the wait time. So if the customer is in position, you can do that. The wait time will only work, of course, if there's enough people in line and enough time has gone by, right? So I mentioned automated messaging. This is where you'll do the automated messaging. So for example, you can't create a custom one, but these are the ones that are out of the box that you can leverage. And then you can create your own script and it will do text to speech and display that script. Now, of course, most customers will already have Teams, of course. So if you did want to kind of leverage this and really take advantage of the power of the platform, you can basically enable the ability to consult and transfer to other Teams users, which actually means that it will still continue with the recording and everything from a compliance perspective will still be adhered to. Because, of course, it's the same platform. So you can enable this. It does require a little bit of config in Teams to finish that up, but it's possible, and it's literally just a PowerShell script. So not easy, not hard to run. So here we're creating the channel. We've created a work stream. Now we're going to go into the work stream and configure the routing rules. Bear in mind, we've already created skills and we've already created the queues. So the logic should be pretty easy to do. Now, let's just check on that logic by going into Copilot Studio and asking a question. So let's ask, if planning the implement a call of a contact center. Just make sure that it's all still working. Great. So it's going into FS Learn to get the information. Perfect. I speak to someone. Learn more. Now it didn't hit my intents, which is fine. I will look at the variables. So all of these variables are variables that I can access inside of Omnichannel. And in fact, I will show you how to do that. Sometimes. Okay. I think I named it call reason. Okay, so we're going to do that. We're going to basically call it call reason. So we're going to open the work stream. The work stream is basically how we specify routing. It's kind of like that container that tells you how the channel should behave from a routing perspective, from a context variables perspective, from what bots are associated. All of that is actually associated to the work stream. So first of all, we're going to create that context variable because we are going to need that for routing. And the variable has to have the same name as the context variable needs to have the same name as what we put into the bot itself. This also works for chat as well, by the way. Now, from a bot, I have already created a bot. It's called the DCCSS bot, as you saw. So I'm going to take this opportunity to connect it now. And then I am going to go to the piece de resistance, which is route to queues. Actually, before I do that, I am going to go into the work classification. Now, from a skills-based routing perspective, how do you define what skills there are? This is actually how. So skills needed. You can create those rules that add metadata to the conversation that will dictate the skills needed for that conversation. That's then going to allow you to assign it to the right agent. So remember, from a unified routing perspective, it's always route to queue and then assign to agent. So ACS needed. So the ACS skill is needed, for example, if we do, for example, add related entity, that related entity gives you access to context variables. Context variables, but it could be, for example, if someone is associated, like the contact is, for example, calling from a particular place, like a particular high priority person, and you want to, only specific people to be able to deal with that person, then you have the opportunity to do that. I'm not doing it now. I'm just showing you where to go for that. So here, you'll basically set the skills needed to manage this type of conversation. And you can also say the proficiency that they would need. Okay, so I'm going to cancel out of this because in my actual demonstration, we're not going to do that. We're just going to basically route to the queue. So let us do and create the rule set. So it's going to be example. As again, really horrible at naming conventions. Apologies. And then this is going to be routing to the licensing. I'm going to basically say, again, related entity, because I want to access the context variable. That's where we have the call reason and the call. You have to basically pull the call reason here, and it would be licensing. Okay, and then we're going to route it to the licensing inquiries queue. If you had, okay, I might have forgotten to assign people to my queues. But if you had multiple queues, so for example, you had the like a company that said, okay, I need to distribute 20% of calls to a particular queue, and maybe 50%, you can do that. So you can basically put the work allocation percentage, should that be a requirement, because I know that there are some contact centers that do have that requirement. So we're going to basically save it here. And then I'm actually going to do a full refresh, because what I did notice is that from a work stream perspective, it's basically telling me that my event grid is still problematic. So let's go into the main hotline, just double check again that it's saying that. No, yeah, it is. So let's refresh just to make sure it's actually fine. And then we're going to go and assign my users to my queue. And then I'm going to go log in and we're going to try it out. Because to be honest, that's it. Okay, let's go check this out. Go to phone numbers. And we go to advanced and just check. Incoming calls isn't great. Okay, let's check out what's going on with my incoming call subscription. They are still in provisioning state. Still says creating. Let's refresh and see what the status of that subscription is. By the way, now that I can slow down, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Tricia. So let's take a look. I don't think there are any questions at the moment. I think the only question at the moment is a link to your blog, which we've shared. But there is a question actually by Neil Lombard who's asking, can you talk about the AI touch points?
Sure. Now, to be honest, remember from a co-pilot standpoint, from a co-pilot standpoint, what do you need? You're going to need call transcription at a minimum. In order to do call transcription, you're going to need this event grid. Incoming call. I'm going to show you where and how to enable all of that in a second. Thanks for reminding me. I did have that on my list of things I wanted to show. So if I do webhook here and then configure endpoint, confirm. Now, if you did want to, because there are some instances, right? So let's say you're using Copilot in service. Now, Copilot in service is great. I am like the biggest fan. But there are some instances where you just don't have the language capability. So say you're using the Baltic language, which isn't actually supported right now. So you won't get that speech to text capability. You won't get Copilot. All of that stuff would not be, oh, sorry. You know what I did wrong? Of course, as I said, I always forget this. You won't get that. There are ways to extend it, but the thing is, you will need to kind of allow yourself to get an use a session birder controller that will plug into some speech model to do that. Now, I'm going to show how we can use the out of the box Copilot in service. Though, I'm going to save this, make sure it's created. Let's enable Copilot, then let's give it a run. Okay, great. So we now have both successful. Let's close this. And then let's go into productivity. And in to be honest, you can enable it in two places, insights and productivity. When you enable the question and answer capability in Copilot, you will be able to specify like where the knowledge is taken from. I've chosen to kind of take my knowledge from the same knowledge sources that I'm using in Copilot Studio. Or you can use your dynamics or dynamics knowledge. Now, Seb earlier showed the whole knowledge agent, knowledge autonomous agents. Bear in mind, those autonomous agents create those knowledge articles in Dataverse. So with that in mind, you probably want to choose this one. But if you had like, third-party websites, actually, third-party websites do not work for your for question for ask a question. It will work for other things. But if you had knowledge in SharePoint, documentation, anything like that, of course, it will read it in from what you have in Copilot Studio, enabling you to have the same experience as an agent that your customers are doing as well. So I'm going to enable ask a question here, and I want it to do suggest a response. By the way, I don't think that's going to work for me because I don't have much enabled in my knowledge. I'm showing you where it's enabled. Now, translation, if I was interacting and I had a multilingual contact center, I can enable that to allow my agents to translate what's going on within Copilot and vice versa. And I'm going to show you another cool thing as well. So I'm going to save and close this, and then I don't know the number I'm supposed to call. So let me grab that number, and then let's give it a run by going into the customer service workspace or the contact center. So one thing you also notice is because I don't actually have a customer service, this is not a customer service environment. This is actually a standalone contact center environment. So it says contact center admin center, and it will be contact center workspace. So that's another way to tell what exactly have you got. Mine is the contact center workspace because this doesn't have customer service associated to it at all. Okay, so give me 1 second. I am going to try to give it a ring. And I hope that you'll be able to hear it. Da, 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 da. I want to allow it to the site. So make sure that your presence is loaded. You got access to your mic, and 0118202. Can you hear?
Tricia, we can't hear your but it seems that someone can hear, but that's fine.
For the Dynamics contact.
You can hear?
Please note, this call will
yes,
be
we can hear
recorded
that,
for
yes.
training and quality purposes. If you would like to provide feedback, please stay on the phone at the end of the call. Please let us know, how can we help you today?
Well, I need to see how I can configure the Dynamics Contact Center. Oh, I'm on mute. What do I need to consider if I want to plan an implementation of the Dynamics Contact Center? By the way, always make sure that you have latency enabled.
Contact center. You might want to consider using a planning system that can handle various tasks such as plan copy, plan delete, and plan version cleanup. These tasks are automated with planning optimization, so manual intervention is not necessary. Additionally, you can use a calculate plan batch job to create a replenishment plan for items and stock keeping units, which will automatically suggest actions to replenish items.
I don't think that was the right answer, but we'll digress. What license do I need to enable voice in the Dynamics 365 Contact Center?
We are getting this information for you. To enable voice capabilities for your Dynamics 365 Contact Center, you would need the Dynamics 365 Contact Center voice license, which has no prerequisites and can be applied to any application. Additionally, you should consider the Azure consumption costs required for providing native voice and SMS capabilities through Azure Communications Service. To enable voice and Dynamics 365 contact information, you will need the appropriate licensing for Dynamics 365 customer service. This typically includes a Dynamics 365 customer service enterprise license, which provides access to voice capabilities and other advanced features.
Can I speak to somebody to talk about that?
Let me transfer you now.
Okay. So, moment of truth. You know what I forgot to do? I bet somebody figured it out. I didn't add myself into the queue for Kiara. Okay, let me do that now, really quickly. And it would, you know how many times it told me you haven't added to the queue? Please, 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 always pay attention to the errors that the system is telling you, because it will just help you. So I need to add myself into the I need the general queue, I need the licensing queue, and I need the roadmap queue. I added myself into the wrong queues, that's why. Okay, and then that's all, and then save. Okay, here we go. Let's do that one more time. Actually, there's one other thing I wanted to do whilst I'm here. So in user management, I'm going to go into, actually no, in routing, I'm going to go into skills-based routing, and I'm actually going to enable the skills control. And the reason I'm going to show you why I'm going to do that. So let me enable that as well, and save and close. And let's just give it one more shot. Okay, calling the number now.
Thank you for calling the Community Helpline for the Dynamics Contact Center. Please note, this call will be recorded for training and quality purposes. If you would like to provide feedback, please stay on the phone at the end of the call. Please let us know, how can we help you today?
What license do I need to consider the Dynamics Contact Center?
We are getting this information for you. We are getting this information for you. For the Dynamics 365 Contact Center, you need to consider that there is no entitlement to create chatbots or use via Copilot Studio. Additionally, it can be leveraged with any CRM as a true CCAS solution. To consider the Dynamics Contact Center, you will need to look into the specific licensing requirements for the platform. If you need more detailed information, please let me know.
Can I speak to somebody about licensing?
Let me transfer you now.
Thanks. So this is my number. Click on accept. Now, a couple of capabilities that are available out of the box will be speech to text, sentiment analysis, and we enable Copilot. Now, you'll notice that on the right, well, you have the transcript of everything that we talked about on the call with the bot. But then on the right, what Copilot's going to do is Copilot summarizes the conversation. Yeah, showing the transcript there. Mute myself here. And then Copilot automatically goes and tries to search for this information in the knowledge that I've provided it. So if it did find something, it comes up, allowing me as the agent to basically go straight to the customer and say, hey, you know, I see that you're looking for information about the Dynamics Contact Center. This is the information. It goes out, provides the information, allows me to respond quickly to the agent. Another thing as well I could have done is I did not enable. So like from a Copilot standpoint, you also have summarization, which will allow you to summarize the conversation. So when the conversation comes and is routed to the agent, you can summarize that conversation. It's literally just a chat box that you can enable here. So if I go back here, When I did the question and answer right below it, and I should have done that, is summarization of the conversation. So you just need to agree on that, opt in. And the reason I'm doing this is because if you don't, you need to basically ensure that you can allow data movement across the regions. Bear in mind, if you're in the EU, if you're in Europe, that is still moving. I think it moves across. I think it still stays in Switzerland. I need to double check on that. But here, so you can basically do, when an agent joins a conversation, you want a summary. When the conversation ends, you want a summary, et cetera, et cetera. So you can enable that. So I'm going to save and close. It's not going to help us now, but that will help for the next time I use this number. So here is the thing. If I basically said, thank you so much. It was great to have everybody listen to me for a full hour showing how we can do ACS configuration. You'll notice that there is speech to text enabled. So everything that I just said will be here. Okay, and you'll notice that, as I said, positive sentiment, because sentiment analysis is already enabled. Yeah, I think that in a nutshell is how you configure ACS with skills-based routing with a little bit of Copilot in less than an hour. Oh, the feedback, yes.
Oh. You can say yes or no.
Yes, it's been resolved. Yes. Okay, great. Yeah, so then that was the feedback survey popping in because I did end the call. And then you can, of course, have a Power Automate flow that goes and updates anything that you need at the end of it. So that was it. That was in a nutshell. It's not, it's a bit different moving pieces, but it is totally doable.
Fantastic. Round of applause for Tricia. So this is what the attendees have been waiting for all day, Tricia, as we've kind of progressed through the day. So what you've covered today is exactly what they were waiting for, and you showed exactly what they wanted. So really appreciate that, because one of the key gaps for most of these, for the Dynamics 365 community is really bridging the gap with the Azure communication services, and that's what you exactly showed today.
Yeah, yeah. I see a couple of questions. I'm just going to quickly tackle them whilst I've got 2 minutes. In the event of latency, this is a Copilot Studio thing, right? There are two things that we need to do from a voice perspective, and then of course from a Copilot Studio perspective. From a Copilot Studio perspective, you have the opportunity to specify what you define as latency. You'll have noticed the first time that I called, it did not say anything. It was it was like a blank space. That's because I didn't enable that to have any notification or anything like that. And the second time it kept saying, we're looking into this for you. And that's because I said, after like 1000 milliseconds or something, say this. So you can configure what will happen if, for example, you do have those problems. The second thing is from a voice perspective. Now, from a voice perspective, it's important to basically configure and plan for that in terms of your design and your infrastructure. And that's why I ensure that we do have voice infrastructure SMEs available, because they plan for, okay, where is your ACS resource? Where is the SBC configured? What's the path that it's taking? And also you have to then consider where your agents, like I obviously have really horrible poor bandwidth, which could also affect me if I'm on a contact center. So you've got to think about all these things and plan ahead for it. And also, how do you set up the contact center to work with other CRMs that aren't Dynamics 365? Well, of course, it's a contact center solution. So I think what Peter mentioned earlier is that you have the out-of-the-box connector for Salesforce. If it is a third-party connector, you will be able to still integrate with that via you've got the widget that you can embed and have it hosted in an on-prem or even a cloud-based system, right? You can also have the standalone version, which we've also used, and we basically embedded like an iframe compatible CRM system into that standalone version. So you do have that flexibility, but then you also have to consider the synchronization because you're going to need the contact and account to be synced. You have that out of the box sync with Salesforce, but with ServiceNow, Zendesk, and the others, you're going to need to do a little bit of extra work to configure that synchronization. And those steps are available on the Microsoft Learn website. Those are the two questions I saw. Okay, great. Sorry, yes, I'm back. But I'm really happy that you guys, really found this useful, hopefully. If you want to see more, please join my blog. And also, I am doing an omni-channel in a day workshop, if I can say, Raz, at Color Cloud, which is going to be in Hamburg. And we're literally going to go through this step by step. We've got Microsoft Fast Track will be there to support. You will each leave at the time, you will each leave with a working contact center solution. Okay. Okay. So direct routing through audio codes SBC, you've got a couple of options with audio codes SBC. Of course, you can configure it yourself, or you can use LiveHub. LiveHub is pretty much like a low code plug and play kind of option. Both will work, right? For me, I tend to use audio codes, and how I showed you, when you go into the phone number, there's 3 down, and I should have showed you. I'm really sorry about that. I was supposed to. There's an option for direct routing. Just click on direct routing and you will configure your FQDNs, etc. there to connect to audio codes. But audio codes also have LiveHub, which allows you to plug into ACS. So you don't even have to do any of that.
Thank you so much, Tricia. You've answered all the questions as well. I've shared your contact details. Feel free to share your LinkedIn as well. Make sure everyone connect with Tricia, who's really, really a leader in this space, I have to say. So once again, huge round of applause for Tricia for really, closing off this important aspect of the configuration for contact center. And we hope to see you soon. And again, you can join Tricia at many events. You mentioned Color Cloud, as well as many other community events. So huge thank you, Tricia.
Thank you so much. I'm putting the link to Color Cloud in the chat. Please feel free, grab a ticket to come see me and the team, and let's get building. Thank you. Bye.
Excellent. Thank you, Tricia. Excellent. Okay. So we're on the hour and we are connecting with New Zealand now. So we've been around the world, connecting with many people and speakers from around the world today. And so we have a special guest speaker, Nathan Rose. So let's see if Nathan is able to share his screen. And is your mic working, Nathan?
Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you, Nathan. We can hear you loud and clear.
All right, fantastic. All right, you ready for me to kick off?
Oh, yes, please do.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. I assume my screen is coming through.
You are audible and visible.
Fantastic. All right. Thanks so much, Roz. Kia ora, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you, wherever you are tuning in from across the globe. Thank you so much for coming along to the Global Dynamics 365 Bootcamp today and for coming along to my session. I am incredibly excited to have this opportunity to share with you all today. Before I start out, I do want to give a huge shout out and thank you to the organizers and sponsors of this event. Putting on events like this is a massive amount of effort, and I really appreciate this opportunity for presenters and creators like myself to come and share the things we are so passionate about. So huge shout out and thank you to the organizers and sponsors. Welcome to Simplify This. We are going to demystify all aspects of SLAs in Dynamics 365 customer service. I don't know about you, but SLAs are often the bane of my existence. They can be a bit of a drama to put together, but don't worry. By the end of this session, you will know everything there is to know about SLAs, and who knows, you might even come to love them. Well, it is a glorious summer morning here in Auckland in the Southern Hemisphere. Don't mean to to be unkind to any of you who are in the Northern Hemisphere where it's still winter. I literally just got back from there a week ago today, and it is pretty cold up north. But let's go ahead and crack into it. So before we get into the details of SLAs, we actually need to take a trip back in time and back to the Northern Hemisphere to Canada. In Canada, there are a couple of companies, Rogers and Bell Alliant. And these companies provide telecommunications services in Canada. So think video, internet, voice, these kinds of things, and they provide them to commercial and consumer customers. Now, a number of years ago, Rogers entered into an agreement with Bell Alliant to lease some of their physical infrastructure. So think telephone poles, fiber optic cable, things like that. This is a fairly common scenario in the world of telecommunications. Providers do these kinds of things all the time. And so they got their legal departments together, some of the brightest and most expensive legal minds in Canada, hammered out an agreement that both companies signed, and life was pretty sweet. Until they had a disagreement. In the contract, there was a single clause. This is the clause. And it says that the contract was effective from the date it was signed and continued in force for 5 years and would continue for 5-year terms afterwards unless it was terminated by one or the other parties. Clear as mud, right? Something only a lawyer could appreciate. So what's the problem? Well, despite the fact that both companies had signed off on the same exact wording, they had a miscommunication, which is a bit ironic given that these are two companies whose entire job, whose entire existence is to provide communication services. They had different interpretations of this clause. You see, Rogers understood this clause to mean that this contract was locked in place. It was inviolable for 5 years. However, Bell Alliant saw things differently. They believed the wording of this contract meant that it could be terminated at any point in time. Well, this is a bit of a quandary, isn't it? Because we've got two companies who have signed off on the same exact wording, and yet they have two very different and conflicting interpretations of it. But it gets even weirder than that, because the disagreement came down to a single comma in this clause. You heard that right. There is a single comma that is the world's most expensive comma. Maybe not the world's, maybe just the most expensive comma in Canada. Now, there's a few commas here, but would you like to see the most expensive comma that caused all this drama? There it is. Now, I don't know about you, that looks like a standard Oxford comma to me. I don't see anything particularly special about it. And yet, this comma spawned an incredible legal debate. As you can imagine, things got pretty heated, and sooner or later, the authorities had to get involved. The CRTC, the Canadian Radio and Telecommunications Commission. As their name implies, they regulate the telecommunications industry in Canada. And incidentally, they're also the grammar police, because it was their job to determine what this comma meant. Did it mean the contract was locked in place for 5 years, or did it mean it could be terminated at any time? Well, the CRTC pondered this issue, put some of their brightest minds on it, and came to a conclusion. Do you know what they concluded? They saw things Bell Alliant's way. They believed that that comma meant this contract could be terminated at any time. As a result, Rogers had to pay over $1 million in fines, and Bell Alliant promptly canceled the contract and renegotiated for a much higher rate, costing Rogers over $6 million. And of course, this doesn't include all of the fees paid to all of those lawyers who worked on this. So the real cost is probably much, much higher. Now you're sitting there thinking, Nathan, this is a fascinating cautionary tale. Thank you for that. What on earth does commas and Canadians and telecommunications have to do with the stated reason that we're all here? We all came to learn about SLAs, and you're talking about something very different. Well, I want you to keep this big idea in the back of your mind as we're going through our time together today. The worst miscommunications often happen when two parties think that they are talking about the exact same thing, but they mean something else entirely. Again, communication breaks down in the worst ways when we think we are on the same page, but we actually have different meanings entirely. And like we saw with the Canadian comma, miscommunications in the world of SLAs can be very, very expensive. In fact, let's take a quick tour through the Hall of Shame of some of the costliest SLA miscommunications in history. Now, to my knowledge, none of these involved Dynamics customer service. However, a number of years ago, Hertz and Accenture disagreed over the meaning and terms of an SLA, and this disagreement cost $32 million. Sometime later, the Royal Post Office in the UK and HP disagreed over the cost of an SLA to the tune of $74 million. And the granddaddy of them all, British Airways and SITA, once disagreed over the terms of an SLA costing over $100 million. There's $200 million of miscommunication on SLAs on this single slide alone. And so getting it right when you are configuring SLAs is critically important when setting up Dynamics customer service. Kia ora, everyone. I'm Nathan Rose. And unlike pretty much everybody else in the Dynamics and Power Platform space, I'm kind of the only one who's not into Lego. Not sure what's up with that, but yeah, that's me. In my day job, I am a solution architect at Olympic 33 here in beautiful Auckland, New Zealand. I am also a Microsoft MVP in business applications. As my fellow MVP Mary Myers is fond of saying, how do you know someone's an MVP? Don't worry, we'll tell you. And I'm kind of known as the Power FX guy. So this is a bit of a different session for me. I'm used to talking about the joys of low code and empowering makers. However, last year I got involved with having to troubleshoot an SLA for a client. And as a result, I dived deep into SLAs, learned all about how they worked, and am incredibly passionate about sharing what I learned to spare you the pain I had to go through when setting these up. And my mission is to unleash human creativity via the Power Platform and low code. Now, a quick overview of how we're going to spend our time together today. We're going to start out by looking at how SLAs are set up and architected in Dynamics, the required components and how it all hangs together. We'll then cover the process to set them up correctly the first time. It's a little counterintuitive, but don't worry. By the time we're done, you'll know exactly how to do it. Then we're going to get into the real meat of the session. How do we interpret the business language used by customers when they describe their SLAs to us? And how do we translate that into how Dynamics actually works and calculates an SLA? We'll then get hands-on, and I'll show you a bit of this in action in Dynamics Service, and we'll wrap up with Q&A. Q&A is my favorite part of these sessions. I absolutely love the questions you ask because I learn the most and get my best ideas and content from them. If I can't answer the question on the spot, don't worry, I will put together a post in due time once I've got a good and considered answer for you. And as always, I love for these sessions to be as interactive as possible. So if at any point in time you have a question, a comment, something you don't understand, something you don't agree with, feel free to come off mute and let's talk about it. Alternatively, if you prefer to pop your comment in the chat, that's cool too. I don't have ready access to it while I'm presenting, but if there is a comment or question there that I need to address, if Roz, if you wouldn't mind just popping off mute and letting me know, we can address it in real time. All right, let's get into it. Well, SLAs are challenging to say the least. I don't know about you, but maybe it's just me, but I put off configuring these as long as possible because it is often a painful process of trial and error and whack-a-mole trying to get these to work in dynamic service. And there are three key reasons as to why I believe SLAs are such a drama. To begin with, they are comprised of multiple interconnected moving parts, so there's a lot there that you have to get your head around. Secondly, we don't do this very often. Unless your entire job is to look after the SLA for a dynamic service implementation, or you do nothing but Dynamics customer service all day, every day, you probably only do this once every few years or so, which means in that time you forget how you did this and you have to repeat the cycle of pain all over again. So they're complicated. We don't do this very often. And then finally, the way the end user describes their SLA varies, is different from how we understand it to how Dynamics 365 actually works. So I'm going to cover off all of these, and by the end of this, you will know exactly how to get an SLA set up very quickly and correctly the first time. All right, so what are SLAs made of? What are they comprised of? Well, there's 6 key components of an SLA, and they all revolve around the case in Dynamics. That's how it comes out of the box. And this is how many people use SLAs in Dynamics. Now, you can enable any table you want in Dataverse for an SLA, so it could really revolve around anything you wanted. But many people do this around the case, and that's the example that we're going to use today. And there are 6 parts of this SLA that you need to get your head around. Firstly, we've got business hours. Out of the box, Dynamics assumes that you have a 24/7, 365-day operation, but not every business operates that way. Some work Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, and we don't want that SLA counting against us when we're not at work. And so we need to set up the times when that SLA applies, when we're open for service, and when it doesn't. So we need to set up the business hours. Next, we need to configure the holiday calendar. Days that we would otherwise be working, but hooray, we got the day off, and so we need to ensure that SLAs aren't counting down on public holidays. All right, so we've set up the times when we're working, when the SLA should apply and when it shouldn't. Next, we have the SLA KPI. This is what we're actually tracking and measuring against in that SLA. So we need to set that up. And then we come to the SLA table itself. Now, the SLA table doesn't really do a whole lot on its own. It just kind of acts as a header to pull all of this stuff together. But from the SLA, we do configure the SLA item. And this is the real meat, the real glue of the SLA, because this pulls everything together. It pulls everything from the business hours to the SLA KPI together, as well as the KPI instance. This is what's created when a KPI is applied to a case and starts tracking the due date for compliance with the SLA. So these are the 6 elements of an SLA. But let's come down one more level in detail, and let's plot this out on an ERD, because I think once we see how this all hangs together, it'll make a lot more sense. So let's start in the middle. We'll start with the SLA item, because this is what pulls everything together. And the SLA item is connected to business hours and to the holiday calendar. And it does that through a series of one-to-many relationships. So this is how we let the SLA know when it applies and when it doesn't. Next, we need to track what we're measuring by way of the SLA KPI. Again, another one-to-many relationship. And then we have the actual SLA itself, which is pulling all of this together. So these are the components of the SLA. This is what's going to be applied to a case. Then once we apply the SLA to the case, an SLA KPI instance is created, and that's where all of these elements from the SLA item are brought together to give you the specific SLA numbers, when it starts, when it stops, when it's due, on a specific case. So this is what everything looks like behind the scenes in Dataverse. This is how it all hangs together. All right, so we've explored the components of an SLA, how they're all put together. Now let's move on to how we actually set them up, how we configure them. And in order to do that, I've put together an example case that I'm going to be referencing through this entire time. So for our example, we're going to assume that we have a customer service office that's based here in Auckland, New Zealand, and that we work Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. Now, to keep this simple, I've excluded lunch breaks from the customer service schedule. That is something you can configure, but just to keep it simple for round numbers, 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, I've excluded that. I know, bit of a slave driver for my imaginary company, but just trying to keep it simple for everyone. We'll take standard New Zealand public holidays. See, I'm not that bad of a boss. And I've got two SLAs that we're going to apply to cases. The first SLA expects a response to be sent 3 days after the case has been created, and it's going to warn 2 days into that SLA period if it hasn't been resolved. And our second SLA expects that the case will be resolved 5 days after it's created, and it will warn 4 days into its SLA period. Now, if you want to take a quick screenshot of that to reference it while we're going through the rest of our time together, I'll give you a second to do that. And let's get into the process. So the first thing we need to do is we need to set up our holiday calendar. So we're going to go into the Dynamics Service Admin app, and we set up the holiday calendar. This is what it looks like. Now, the downside of the holiday calendar is that this is a manual process. We have to remember to do it, and we have to remember to do it each year. Frankly, it's something I'm surprised that hasn't been automated, but this is something that you have to do manually. Now, you can enter them several years in advance, but again, someone has to remember to do it and remember to get all these holidays in there. So manual step, but important because we want to make sure that the SLA doesn't apply when we are on a public holiday. Next, we need to set up our customer service calendar. Same part of the admin app, and this is where we will define our service hours, when we're open for business and when we're not. Now, your first question is probably, what's the difference between the customer service calendar and operating hours? Well, the service calendar applies to the SLA hours, when we're working, when we're not. The operating hours are related to routing. So just for the SLA, we don't need to worry about operating hours. We just worry about the customer service calendar. This is what it looks like. And so we enter the days that we're working and the days that we're not. Now we can have different hours for each day of the week. I've just kept it very simple, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. You can see towards the bottom that we have our holiday schedule to ensure that we observe that. And at the bottom, we need to set our time zone. Now, this is a critical step to get right, because if you don't, you might see things that don't make sense in your SLA due dates. Those of you who are in the UK, Western Europe, it probably doesn't make as much of a big deal because you're fairly close to GMT, an hour or two off GMT. Those of us who are here on the international date line, this can make a dramatic difference to our SLA due dates because we are anywhere from 11 to 13 hours different from GMT, depending on the time of the year. All right, so we've set up our holiday calendar and we've set up our customer service schedule. It's now time to set up the SLA KPIs. This is where we come into the service terms part of the customer service admin app. And our SLA KPIs look like this. We specify the table that they refer to, the case, the KPI field, and when it's applicable from. So to keep it simple, I've just said it applies from the created on date of the case. Now, it's a little counterintuitive because you would think you would set up the SLA first, but actually you create the SLA KPIs first, and then you move on to the SLA itself. And again, the SLA doesn't really do a whole lot. We specify the table it applies to, but other than that, it just kind of acts as a header to pull all this stuff together. but we do configure our SLA items from here. Now we're going to spend a bit of time on the SLA items because this is where, at least for myself, I got really confused last year. So we'll spend a bit of time explaining what's going on here. All right, so on our SLA item, we specify our SLA KPI, the business hours that apply. You see those on the left. Towards the center of the screen, we set up when this SLA is activated, when it is set. So I am applying it when the case origin is set to phone, just to keep things simple. And the SLA succeeds when it's resolved. Remember, I've got two. I'm just showing you one of them. This is the second SLA, so the case needs to be resolved 5 days after it's created. And at the bottom, you can see our duration. Again, the customer told us to warn 4 days into the SLA and fail 5 days after the case has been created, if it hasn't been resolved. All right, so we've got our SLA item set up. We've activated the SLA. One more thing, though, before you do that is don't forget to configure your actions. This is here at the bottom of the SLA item. And when you click on this, this is going to pop open Power Automate, and you now have nearly unlimited capability to do stuff when your SLA succeeds, fails, or is nearing non-compliance. And so we can do things like post a Teams message, send an email, create a row in Dataverse. All kinds of stuff is available to us because this is in Power Automate. All right, we are ready to go. So we have activated our SLA and we've applied it to a case. Something looks very wrong here, doesn't it? Because the customer told us that the first response is due 3 days after the case is created, and the case should be resolved 5 days after it's created. But on this case, we've applied the SLA, and the first response is due 2 weeks from now, and the resolution is due 3 weeks from now. What on earth is going on? Well, this is a variation of a conversation that I've had with customers about SLAs in the past. So the customer says our SLA is 5 days. Awesome. Let me set that up for you in Dynamics. Something looks wrong here because that SLA expiry is way farther in the future than we expected it to be. Weird. It looks like it's correct on the SLA item. You said 5 days, and that's what the SLA item says. Your workday is 24 hours long, right? What are you, crazy? We have laws here. We only work 8 hours a day. All right, I've changed the duration on the SLA item to 40 hours. Weird. It says 1.67 days. But the expiry on the SLA looks correct, so let's just roll with it. All right, this is where we get the breakdown in communications between what the customer is telling us their SLA is and how Dynamics actually works. So let's explore that. The key term to hone in on when you are configuring an SLA item is duration. This is the thing you've got to hone in on. When a customer uses business language, so for example, our SLA is 5 days, what you want to do is you want to convert that into a duration. So again, in our example, we work 5 days a week, 8 hours a day. So we need to multiply that 5-day week times the 8-hour workday, and that's going to give us a duration of 40 hours. And so we're going to enter that into the SLA item. But something still looks weird here, right? We put in 40 and it says 1.67. What's happening on the SLA item is anything over 24 hours is converted into days. So you start at 24, if you write it in 24 hours, it will put 1 day. So that's what you're seeing there. So 40 hours is 1.67 days. If you do the math, divide 40 by 24, that's what you'll see. And so that's what's going on the SLA item. The other thing to keep in mind is that the duration is punctuated by the customer service and holiday calendars. Again, the SLA only is applicable when we're open for business. And again, the key to getting this right, convert the business speak into duration. So when they say 5 days, there's a bit of complexity they're not telling you about. They've assumed that it is 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, but they haven't voiced that to you, but that's basically what they're telling you. So again, convert it into a duration. All right, so we've figured out what the customer actually meant when they said a 5-day SLA. Let's try this again. So we've updated our duration at the bottom. Remember, again, anything over 24 hours is a day. And even though we have entered the duration in hours. All right, let's go back to our case because I think we've cracked it. Oh, no. We still don't have it right. This looks totally wrong, right? Because we expect to see 3 days and 5 days for our resolution, and yet this is almost double. It's expecting the first response almost 6 days from now and the resolution almost 8 days from now. What on earth is going on? All right, let's go to a calendar and dive into this because this will unveil what's actually happening. All right, so here's a calendar for January in Auckland, and I created the case on Wednesday, the 22nd of January. Now, depending on which side of the date line you're on, that was 2 days ago for us here. It is now Friday, the 24th here in Auckland. For some of you, that will be yesterday, but the case was created at 5:45 p.m. on Wednesday, the 22nd. But our business hours are 9 to 5. All right, so the SLA isn't going to actually start kicking in until Thursday, the 23rd. That's when we get 8 hours of SLA time. Same for today, Friday the 24th, another 8 hours or 1 business day of SLA time. It doesn't apply over the weekend because we're closed. And on Monday, not to rub it in, I mean, not only is it summer here, not only is it Friday, we have the day off on Monday. We have a public holiday, so the SLA doesn't apply that day either. And so we get to Tuesday the 28th, our third day of SLA time, and this is the day that the first SLA fails. So if we come here and we count from the 23rd, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and change, that's how we get the 5 days and 23 hours of time until the first SLA fails. And the same for the second SLA. We have 8 hours of time on Wednesday before it fails on Thursday, the 30th of January. And again, we have 7 days and change until that fails. And so that's what you're actually seeing on the case. And so this can be helpful when you're taking customers through this because they don't necessarily understand what they're seeing on the case. So enter your SLA in duration and then take the customer through the calendar so that they understand what they're actually seeing when that SLA actually expires. So that's why it actually warns 5 days and 23 hours from now and fails 7 days and 23 hours from now for our second SLA. All right, so we've covered off the components of the SLA, how to set them up, and what all of this means. Let's get hands-on with a demo. So we're going to take a look at just some of the stuff around the config of the SLA item. I'll just show you just a few tips and tricks and what's going on there because some of it isn't super clear. We'll then take a look at the actions that are configured on the SLA item and what happens when the SLAs warn, succeed, and fail. And then lastly, I told a little bit of a lie. I told you that you can't automate holidays in the service calendar, but you actually can. Thanks to Ben Clist, who's a good friend of mine here in New Zealand. He worked this out last year. I'm going to show you Ben's party trick to automate public holidays on the SLA. So let me pop out of the presentation here, and I am going to open up customer service. All right, so the first thing we're going to take a look at is the SLA item. So we'll come here to service level agreements, and this is the actual SLA that I have running. So this is what we're actually going to see running, but I have created a dummy one here that is inactive just so that we can get in and mess around because they don't let you do that to active SLAs for all the obvious reasons. All right, so we have our test SLA item here. We've got our KPI. I neglected to add business hours, naughty, naughty. We can see when the supply's from, when it succeeds, and then we come down here to our duration. Now, when we click on this drop down, we can see everything from minutes to hours. Okay, that looks cool. And then suddenly it jumps to days. All right, well, how do you configure this if we have something that isn't strictly 8 hours or 5 minutes or something like that? What you actually do is you just come here and clear this field and then type in what you need it to be, say 10 hours. And that's how it actually works. A little counterintuitive, but that's what it's actually doing. And so again, if we have an SLA that is, say, 50 hours, it's going to go and convert that into days. And so that's what's actually happening on the SLA item. Anything over 24 hours, so again, if we say 23.5 hours, it's going to do that as hours. And the second we go to 24, we need to specify the time unit. It's going to start converting that into days. So that's what you're seeing on the SLA item. Kind of an important thing to understand as a consultant, just because this is where you can get really tripped up. All right, next thing is we can open up Power Automate to start doing some pretty cool stuff once that SLA is nearing non-compliance or succeeds or fails. We'll give this a second to pop open here. All right, so what's really neat about this is it comes with the trigger already set up for us and a switch condition. So it's done a lot of the pre-work for us. We just need to come in and specify what happens when we warn, when we succeed, or when we fail. Now, to keep this really simple, I'm just going to add a note to the timeline when we near non-compliance, when we succeed, or when we fail. But it just gives you an idea of what's possible. Now, we could do quite a bit with this. We could invoke an API to talk to a third-party system. We could engage our customer. If we have an SLA that fails and we need to report that to them, we can have emails or other things happen. We can escalate internally, post Teams messages. The sky's the limit because it is all in Power Automate. All right, so that's the SLA item. These are the actions. Let's get hands-on and see this working. So I'm going to come over to the Customer Service Hub app. And the first thing I'm going to show you is just the timer. So I've created this case for SLAs to fail. And so you can see my first SLA has failed. I am overdue by 15 hours to respond to this. So this is what you'll start to see. Once the SLA will count down. So you can see this one is still in compliance. It is counting down. This one starts counting up and tracking how overdue we are for the response. Now, when this one failed, it should have dropped a note into the timeline. Unfortunately, it didn't, so didn't pray hard enough to the demo gods. But that's what happens when SLAs are not met. So they're going to start counting up and giving us an idea of how overdue we are. And again, we can configure our actions to start escalating, notifying managers, things like that, to ensure that we kick into gear and get this sorted. All right, let's go and create a case and watch the SLA in action. Let's come here and let's call this Bootcamp Demo 2, and we'll choose a customer, and let's save. Now, the SLA has not yet applied to this case because remember, it doesn't apply until we specify that the origin is phone. So let's go ahead and do that. And this is now applying an SLA to our case. And you can see it's done that. So we've got our timer. We have a first response due 5 days from now. Remember, if we go back to the calendar, it's 3 business days. So we've got some of today, Friday, but then it doesn't actually pick up again until Tuesday because we have a long weekend here. And the same for our resolution. And you can get into those records here. If you click SLA in the timeline, this is where you can get into the details of your SLA item. your SLA KPI instance. All right, let's go ahead and see the actions work. So I'm going to go ahead and comply with my first SLA. Now, the way I do that, I've kept this fairly simple. I've just got a toggle here. And when this flips from no to yes, this is going to satisfy the conditions of the first SLA to say that we've responded to the customer. So let's go ahead and do that and save. And when we come back here, it's going to say that we've succeeded. So our first SLA has succeeded. And when I refresh the timeline, you can see that we've created a note. So that's the action behind the scenes in Power Automate that is doing stuff when our SLA succeeds or fails. All right, let's go ahead and resolve the case so that we fulfill our second SLA. So we're going to click resolve here in the ribbon and click resolve again. And you can see that our second SLA has resolved, succeeded, and we've created another note in the timeline based on the cloud flow behind the scenes that's running when this stuff happens. So that's the SLA item, and that's seeing this in action on the case. That's what this looks like. All right. The last thing I'm going to show you is how to automate public holidays in customer service. So it doesn't do this out of the box, but if we come here to our service admin app, come down to our calendar and our holiday calendar, so you can see that I have manually entered the public holidays for 2025 into my holiday calendar. But again, it's not ideal because I have to remember to enter them and then do that manually each year. Now you can enter these several years in advance, but you have to remember to do it or you're going to have SLAs calculating on days when we are not necessarily at work. So we have 12 public holidays a year here in New Zealand. And the way you can automate this is come over here to my solution. And I've got a cloud flow. And again, this is courtesy of Ben Clist. So huge shout out to Ben. And this is going to let us automatically populate public holidays. So I'm triggering this manually. If you were doing this in a production sense, you'd probably have it running on a schedule once a year, December or something like that, to go and populate your public holidays. And there is an API available in the Power Platform that lets us get public holidays for any country we like. And it's pretty cool to work with. All we need is a year and a country. So for the year, what I've done is I've got an expression that is getting UTC now. So give me the time right now, add a year to that, and then format it to just give me the year portion of that. I don't need the minutes and the hours. I literally just need the year from UTC a year from right now. So that's what I'm getting for my year. And then I've hard-coded NZ as the country code because that's where we're based. If you were doing this for different countries, let's say you have multi-country setup, then you would probably do this a little bit differently. Once I've got my public holidays back from the API, I now need to filter them. So here in New Zealand, as I mentioned, we have this concept of regional holidays. It's not so much a thing in places like the United States, but here in New Zealand, we have regional holidays. Now, when I get all the public holidays back from the API, it's going to give me every single regional holiday in New Zealand. But since I only want to apply this to Auckland, I need to filter those out. And so I'm doing that here, and I'm saying, give me all of the holidays that apply to everybody in New Zealand, global, and then give me Auckland Anniversary Day because that just applies to Auckland. Cool. So I've filtered my results coming back from that API. The next thing I need to do is just parse my JSON, and now I'm ready to start talking to Dataverse. So what I need to do is I need to format my date that's come back from the API, just put that into a date and time that Dataverse can read, and now we are ready to start talking to the endpoint. There is an OData endpoint in the web API called Save Holiday. Guess what Save Holiday does? That creates the holiday calendar items. And so we can pass a JSON to it. and we need to give it our calendar ID, the name of the public holiday that's coming back from the API, the date that we formatted, the start date, and then we need to give it an end date. Now, the way you do the end date is you need to add a day to the date of the holiday so we get a duration of 1 day. So for example, if you were putting Christmas Day in here, that's the 25th of December. If you said it starts and ends on the 25th of December, you're not going to get a duration of 1 day. So you say it starts on 25th December, ends on the 26th of December, and that'll give us the 1 day duration that we need to populate this in the holiday calendar. Now, I'm not going to click open the advanced options here because I do have my client secret and whatnot for my authentication into Dataverse. There's more secure ways to do it, but again, it's a test system. You will need a service principal to do this. So anytime you're talking to the web API this way, you will need a service principal set up. But once you've got that, you're ready to go. So let's test this and see it in action. So click our test beaker here. Let's run this manually. The other thing I forgot to mention is that where I am looping here, I am not using concurrency control, and I'm specifically not using it because when I have tried to use it, it gets confused and I see results that don't make sense. And so it takes a little bit longer, but I'm looping through sequentially. Something that I have been looking at is how do you improve performance using something like a select statement. Pretty sure Sean Astrahan, Paul Marana, or Damo Bird would solve that in seconds. I'm still working that out. Okay, our flow has run. Let's come to the holiday calendar and let's see what we got. So we have these 12 holidays that I entered for 2025 manually. Let's go to 2026 and see what happened. And look at that. We've got 12 holidays automatically created from the API. Pretty cool, right? Well, we've got these here. What happens if we run it again? Let's see what happens. So we're going to click edit and let's run this again one more time. So our flow is running. Again, it's pulled all these down from the API. It's looping through our public holidays and creating these in Dataverse, I think. Let's see what happens. All right, our flow is run. Let's go back and forward. And we've doubled up. We now have 2 of every public holiday. So in terms of using this in production, the bit I would caution you on, I have tried to work out how do you see if a public holiday exists before you create it. As much as I would love to have 2 Christmases a year, it's not great from the idea of SLA calculations. And so let's say somebody has manually added a holiday and then we have this process run, this process run automatically. We don't want them doubling up. So we want to say, oh, New Year's Day already exists, skip that. I am still working out how to make that work. It's a little complicated in terms of the relationships, but that's how you automate public holiday creation in Dynamics Customer Service. If any of you are interested in this, I do have a solution file I can share with you, so feel free to DM me on LinkedIn and I can get that over to you. All right, so that brings us to the end of the demo. Let's wrap things up. So we've seen some of the tips and tricks around the SLA item config, the duration, how to get your head around that and how to actually do it. We've taken a look at the actions and what happens when you set those up in Dynamic Service. And I've shown you how to automate public holiday creation in Service as well. So that brings us to the end of our time together. We've seen that getting SLAs right is absolutely crucial because if you get it wrong, it can be incredibly costly. We've seen the components of the SLA and the order to set them up in so that you can do this quickly the first time. More importantly, we've looked at how to translate what the client is actually telling you and what they mean into how Dynamics 365 works. So when the client says our SLA is 5 days, what they actually mean by that, say 5 8-hour days, as opposed to 5 24-hour days, and how to set that up into Dynamics, as well as what they're actually seeing on the SLA timer and how to interpret that. And lastly, I've shown you how to automate the holiday calendar in Dynamics Service. And so that brings us to the end of our time together. Thank you all so much for your time and attention. I have thoroughly enjoyed being able to come and share with you today, and I'm happy to take some questions.
Well, thank you, Nathan.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Wow, what an excellent presentation. Well presented and a really great story to follow. Very easy to follow and well broken down. Very
Yeah.
impressive. So the question is by Krunder, who's asking, regional holidays will be a huge challenge in Germany, especially when you have multiple locations in different states.
Yeah, that's a very good call. I I'd need to think about how to do that. You would you'd potentially have to set up different business hours and different holiday calendars for them. But yeah, let me crunch on that and come back to you with kind of a more considered answer. Because yeah, that is a great question, and that is a challenge. And I know Germany wouldn't be the only country to have that problem. I know India also has a lot of very regional public holidays.
Gulshan is asking, is there a nice PCF control to show SLA timers on a list view?
Ooh, good question. I'm not aware of any. You might be able to find some in the PCF gallery, um, or you could always go and create one yourself. I would say use PCF gallery controls with caution, just because again, you don't have control over that. And I do have friends who have used PCF controls in production and they stopped being supported. So you're probably better off creating it yourself if you do want to go that route.
So there's a question by Marianne. How do you
Mhm.
set up business hours, which goes from 16 to 8? So basically 4 p.m. to 8 a.m. So it
Yeah.
goes, yeah.
Yeah, good question. Let me hang on. Let me just pop out of presentation mode and let's go into our calendar. Tell you what, let's create a new one. All right, so so we want to say maybe that happens. So that's going to go say Sunday into Monday. Something like that. Is that what you mean? So 16, so say 4 p.m. and then it's going to end, sorry, you said 16 to 8. So 8 a.m., I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Let's set that up. And I did see another question about meal breaks. So all right, so it's not going to let us do that. So I think what you would have to do is you would say start at 4 and at say 11:30, maybe 12 a.m. Is it going to let us do that? Yeah. All right, so we're going to have to say 11:30. And then what you would do, let's go ahead and save that, is we'll come into Monday and we're going to start that at 12 a.m. and that's going to go to 8 a.m. So that's how we would do that. So I hope that makes sense. And I did, let's actually pop back in. I did see a thing about breaks. So we've got our work hours here, and then we can start to add break times in. So let's say we want to break from say 7 to, oops. Maybe like 7:15. We can do that, and that's how you enter those in. And so that will pause the SLA on those break times.
Fantastic. So Evangelist has a question. Hi, Nathan. Thank you for the excellent demo. Question,
My pleasure.
how do you deal with scenarios that the process is much more complicated, like steps are dynamic and defined by the users manually? Do you use multiple SLAs or SLA items or anything else?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'd probably need a little bit more detail about what you actually want. If it is a totally ad hoc manual process, then automating something like an SLA is going to be a bit of a challenge. But you could go with multiple SLA items if it is within the context of the same case. So the case is created. We have certain milestones to hit until it's resolved, and so you'd probably use separate SLA items for that.
So Narang is asking, if we change the warning failure time, does that apply to active cases for which the old SLA has already triggered or only the ones created after the change?
It's going to be the ones created after the change.
Okay, Jonathan is asking, what is the best way for customers to have different SLA levels? E.g., customer A to have an SLA of 6 hours, but customer B an SLA of 8 hours.
Yeah, great question. So I think this is where you would start to get into entitlements. And this is something that I've not done a whole lot with. So I would defer to anyone else who has a bit more experience with that. But I think that's where you'd start to get into entitlements around the SLA. Yeah, good call out. Sunday, 11:59 p.m. Good call out there.
Hey, I think that's all for questions. I have to say, Nathan, I remember it felt like being in this industry, um, solving these kind of mathematical challenges with Dynamics 365, which is our Power Platform, was kind of very, very common. But then with a lot of the functionality and native features, it kind of got a bit relaxed in that sense. But
Yeah.
it's been very, very refreshing for you to kind of bring up this topic, to be honest, because engineering solutions, this is typically what's involved, and it's great to actually see this type of content re-emerge in the communities. It used to be the case, about 10 years ago, where we were there trying to solve these problems when it comes to concurrency and
Yeah.
calculations, and it feels as though you've kind of brought that back by kind of taking a concept of SLAs, which people think is simple, but it's actually very complex, and you've really opened it up. And I think that's really it's a type of engineering thinking that we need to bring back in the community, because low code doesn't solve everything. You need to have the mindset to solve the problem, and I think you've kind of exposed that today, and that's been really refreshing, to be honest, Nathan.
Thank you.
So can everyone give Nathan a round of applause, because I think it's been absolutely fantastic. The way you delivered this with your kind of storytelling, the problem statement, and then going into an issue which people just take for granted, isn't as simple as it seems. So really refreshing, Nathan. It's the first time I've actually attended one of your sessions, and I'm really blown away, to be honest, Nathan. I think
Thank you.
this is exactly what the community needs, to remain as an actual engineering. We're all engineers, right? We're not just switching buttons on systems. That's how ISVs like to sell their
Yeah.
product, but we know in reality that's not the case. It's a
Yep.
lot more complex, and
Yep. There's a
you
reason you and I
really,
have a job. So
yeah, exactly. And you really have you really have kind of, this is a really great case study, and I think it's going to definitely spark off more of these kind of conversations. So Really thank you, Nathan, for joining us all the way from New Zealand, and
No, my pleasure.
it's been really refreshing. A really great way to kind of, as we kind of close off the sessions of today. It really is a great reminder for customer service consultants. It's not just a case of, of enabling features, but there is a lot of engineering thinking to be done here. So Nathan, are you able to please share your blog and your contact details in the chat?
Yeah, definitely.
So
This is I literally just got a website set up over the break. So that's the best way to connect with me. Otherwise, here's my LinkedIn. And yeah, throw me a connect on LinkedIn. Always always happy to connect with people. So yeah, thank you all so much.
Excellent, Nathan. Huge pleasure to have you. Hopefully see
Thank
you
you.
soon.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Fantastic. That was Nathan. That was really great. So, okay. So our last session of the day, and it is on a very important topic, to do with customer self-service. I know there's been a lot of rave around other features on voice and AI, but self-service still is an important facet of customer service, really. That's what millennials expect. They often just want to get things done themselves. And so we've got Ambesh. Hello there, Ambesh. Are you able to unmute your mic? So let's see if Ambesh is able to unmute. Okay, so let's try again. So hello there, Ambesh. Are you able to unmute now?
Hi, Raz.
Hey, fantastic. Excellent, Ambesh. So, Ambesh, we can hear you, we can see you. You are the last session of the day. For those who don't know Ambesh, he's very active in the Dynamics 365 community. He's a Microsoft MVP. He's covered many topics. He's one of the first who was one of the he was an evangelist on PVA and Power Virtual Agents in the early days, which worked out for him because now that's obviously part of the Copilot stack. But he's been very much involved in enterprise customer service implementations for very large consultancies and customers. So, Ambesh, you're based in Germany. So it's great that you're joining us at such a late time there in Germany. So I'm not going to take up any more of your time, Ambesh. I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you so much, Raz. And then I will quickly start with my slides. Just confirm if you can able to see my screen.
We can. Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you so much. And then here we go. So yeah, this is not for today. This is the last session, but this is not the end of the bootcamp here. So we are on just a second phase, and then we have another around 6-7 weeks again, where we will be coming up with a more dynamic 365 umbrella product. So stay tuned with us. If you have not registered for the other events, please do register for that one. Would be really nice, really great. And I'm pretty sure you are full with the knowledge and excitement. I don't know how much energy you guys still have, but I hope that I can be your next 45-50 minutes or approximately 1 hour. So again, greetings everyone. I would like to again express my heartful gratitude to the Raj and the Power community team for putting together the fantastic global Dynamic 365 bootcamps. Your effort are truly appreciated, Raj, here. And now let's dive into the important question that how we can harness your customer service processes by integrating the agents and the external facing websites. But before we go further, I would like to briefly introduce myself here, and then I will go for the agenda for the session. So my name is Ambesh, and I'm a Microsoft MVP in the business application, focused on the Power Virtual Agent, and now it's called the Copilot Studio, and as well as the Power Pages. And currently, I'm working with the VisionNet Deutschland as a Dynamic 365 and the Power Platform Architect. And prior that, I worked with Avnod, KPMG, Deutschland, Pearson View, EA Sports, and mostly in my career, I've worked with the Microsoft in the different product groups, global consulting, and the deliveries. I'm also the mentor and ambassador of the 365 Saturdays, and now you know it known as in Power Community. and love to speak and share my learnings around the Copilot, Azure, Power Platform, and Dynamic 365 related topics. So what we are going to cover, we are just going to have a small introduction on the Power Pages, a small introduction and overview about the Copilot Studio, then how we can integrate all in the one place, some of the use cases, or basically one of the use cases where we will show some practical demos there, and then we will follow it with a Q&A. So if you have any questions, put this in the chat, and then we will take it everything at the end of the phase. And yeah, I don't have to talk, to be honest, much about the customer service, because since morning till now, we were just keep talking about the customer service in the contact center. So I'm pretty sure you guys are already aware about that one, but let's try to see a different dimension, that how you can leverage the other Power Platform umbrella product to make your customer satisfaction better and just do the complete business efficiency in a good way. So let's start with the Power Pages very quickly. And if I talk about the Power Pages, basically it allows us to create a low-code, no-code website for our customers. And the motto behind the idea is to make it simple. Yeah, make it simple. And portals are actually extending the capabilities of the Dataverse and the Dynamic 365 application. The full capabilities of the Power Pages previously we offered as an add-on to the model-driven apps in Dynamic 365, and then it called the Power App components, and now completely available standalone inside the Power Platform umbrella. And these capabilities features are revamped the end-to-end experience for the makers to quickly create and deploy a website and customize it with the pages, layouts. You have a contents there. Also, makers can reuse the complete base design through the templates. You can add the forms, you can add the charts and the views to display the key data from the Dataverse and publish to the users. Please remember, if you need to really interact with the Dataverse data without the license, without the Dynamic 365 licenses, then you have the way, which is only the Power Pages, because it's an external facing website. You don't need actually some kind of the licenses for the end users there. Yeah, it is not free. There is a different billing mechanism for that one, but we won't go much detail into how Microsoft generate the revenue there. To cut in short, end users who are using the portals, they don't have to pay a single penny into to use or interact with the Dataverse data. Also, when we talk about the scenarios, like how and why it has been bring to the surface, the ideas. So basically to avoid some of the common web development challenges when we talk about the Power Pages. So the common web development challenges could be, like an example, we find very difficulty to finding the balance between the functionality at the same time, when the simplicity using the product. So this is quite simple product, and this particular Power Page is like, it's a low code no code platform. Even the citizens developers can surface it the Power Pages within minutes. Also onboarding on the products take a long time. With the Power Pages, it's really short, really crisp. You don't have to spend a lot of learnings, a lot of time, and a lot of the change management activity there. Also, the product positioning sometimes is confused for the customer. Need to tell the data was story and then differentiation about how the Power Apps or the model driven apps or the Canvas app. Sometimes it is also, you probably isn't a customer pain point, like when you just talk on the table with them. Also, many frictions point related to the user experience are completely basic task, for the poor responsiveness in the maker experience. So this also has been quite enhanced nowadays. Most customer also did not have the skills, time, and the budget to obtain the custom coding web development skills. So that's why you have this portal. You don't have to think about the security mechanism. You don't have to think about the authentication and authorization stuff. Everything is mostly embedded. You just need to configure. You just need to start using into that one. And especially, we will see some videos probably, and some class how you can leverage the Copilot into the Power Pages. So it's like, it's just not for the Copilot. You can use the Copilot bots or the agents for the end user perspective, but also as a maker, you can use it, which definitely leverage your all of the efficiencies in the multiple folds. Now, the last year, the makers also struggle to find the information and how to leverage the portal from the business purpose. That is also at some point of time the customer pain point, but in like after introduction of the Power Pages, most of the things has been already obsoleted there. Now, when I talk about what the Power Pages enabled for everyone as a low code no code website. So the first thing here, like it's make the authority easy for everyone. So anyone can author it, like and like it's enable basically everyone in your organization to design and launch engaging the website, and within the minutes you just need to write a prompt to the Copilot, and the Copilot can surface the entire website for you. Even if you don't want to start it from the scratch, you can use the templates for that because it's a pre-built template. If you I will just show you in the demo in a few minutes. You can choose any of the template which is being available for you. So it's not only specific for the customer service modules, but even if you talk about the sales mechanisms or the custom website, employee portals, and there are so many portals just related on the top of the Dynamic 365. But even if you don't use the Dynamic 365, also you have like plenty of the portals or the template leverages there. So we will have a short demo on that one. Also, you can share with the confidence, like you can manage all of your sites through one's convenient dashboards, and you can meet most of the demanding security and the compliance requirement from there only. Microsoft is really investing, the Power Pages team is really investing on that one, and now you get the complete admin portal in the like with your complete Microsoft Dynamics 365 Admin Center. So you will get a tab there, and from there only you can manage the entire portal. Also, you can build without the boundaries. It means that you can empower your developers with the advanced web design tools or the techniques that can take your page to the whole new level. If I said it's a low code, no code, but it doesn't mean there is nothing for the hardcore developers. So they can definitely leverage. At the end of the day, it's an HTML. It's an HTML, the JavaScript work on that, the CSS work on that, and then you can leverage at any fold. Like you can call the services, you have a different mechanism inbuilt in the outbuild. You just start putting the investment there, and there are really some of the cool examples for the Power Portals. I have probably one from the last UI conference, so I could show a couple of them from there on the chat, probably at the end of uh, the the session. But you just search it, Power Pages or Power Portals examples, and you will see really a cool portals on that one. And at some point of time, you don't even thought for that okay, this is the default template which you are using it. Also, you can snap it in the existing or exciting new pro dev capabilities. So you can add the dashboard, document sharing, chatbots are there, automation, like you can just call the directly the Power Automate workflows from the Power Pages itself. You have a triggers available there, and more for the smartest experience with seamless integration to the Power Platform and other Microsoft services. You probably integrate easily with the SharePoint or Azure components. It's quite visible now with just few button clicks. Also, Power Pages is not alone. And as I said, like last couple of months or it almost a year now, that Microsoft introduced the Copilot into the Power Pages. So let's move further and see a short video from the Microsoft that how the Copilot integrated well in the Power Pages. And this is more from the maker perspective, because I will also cover how it worked for the end user perspective. But let's have a short video where we'll see how to enhance the maker capabilities there.
Next generation AI in Power Pages is revolutionizing how you build and launch data-centric websites for your business. With Copilot in Power Pages, you can speed up website building with natural language content generation, including forms, text, and images, in minutes. Meet Yuri, a business analyst at Woodgrove Bank who's launching a new student loan program. Currently, creating a new program is a tedious and error-prone process that involves designing a form, translating it into tables and columns, and manually coding it into the website. Let's explore how Copilot in Power Pages can accelerate this process and streamline Yuri's workflow. Yuri begins with a pre-built template site within the Design Studio, where they're introduced to the new Copilot experience. Their initial request is to modernize the homepage to make the site more appealing to the target audience. Copilot ensures that Yuri retains control throughout the process, while presenting them with suggestions and options to review, adjust, and make changes accordingly. They are pleased to see that the page now has a more contemporary and visually appealing look and feel. Thanks to Copilot, Yuri no longer needs to write the text for the site or search for inspiration elsewhere. Copilot works as a digital copy editor and can generate content within seconds based on basic descriptions. Yuri can easily adjust the message, tone, or length with one click or entering specific instructions. The next task is to add a loan application form to the site's application page. After selecting the form component, Copilot prompts them with a dialog that simplifies the process of creating a student loan application form using natural language. Within minutes, Yuri has a starter form that they can further customize by adding, removing, or editing fields. Once the form is added to the application page, Power Pages automatically generates a table to store form submissions securely in Dataverse. Yuri can continue to refine the form even after it's added to the canvas. Next, Yuri wants to create an FAQ page to provide students with comprehensive information about the program. With Copilot, creating an FAQ page has become much simpler. They can ask Copilot to generate the page and then refine it to perfection using the tool. Additionally, Yuri can activate the chatbot on the site for simplified information retrieval. As a maker, they no longer need to brainstorm topics alone. With Power Pages' Copilot chatbot feature in the setup workspace, they can easily select the desired web page and activate the chatbot toggle. This enables the AI-powered bot to appear on the student loan page, delivering responses to applicants' questions based on the available information across the site. Amazing, right? This is just the beginning. We're reimagining productivity and revolutionizing website development with upcoming Power Pages AI capabilities such as page creation, site theming, and image generation, among others. The future of low-code website development is here. Imagine it, describe it, Power Pages will help you build it.
So just to add here, the page creation and the site theme has been already introduced as a capability now. So you don't have to wait any longer for that. When you can create the pages with the Copilot, you can even change or manage the site theming by using the Copilot. We might have a quick look for that one in coming minutes, but I don't go very deep into that one because that could be probably the specific topic related with the Power Platform Bootcamp or maybe the Power Pages Bootcamp. But I will just touch a base so you know how to leverage the complete Maker Studio. But before we proceed with the capabilities, let's hold a minute and let's understand now around the Copilot Studio. So what is the Copilot Studio? Basically, like we are hearing it since long. Few times we said it's a change name or the rebranding on the PVA, more or less true, but now no longer. Yeah, it initially used the PVA engine, PVA interface, and everything, but now it's come as a standalone product itself. It's a basically the or conversational application that use the traditional bot building tools in the conjunction with generative AI techniques or the technologies to bring the enhanced experience to your end users or even customer or even suppliers or maybe your employees. Like you can, it is up to you like where you are just patching it off. Now, very often you will also hear the term of the generative AI. So it is also important to know about that. What is that? The generative AI is basically a type of the AI that can create a new content such as text, images, videos, musics, or even the code using the generative models. So one of the example of the generative AI is the ChatGPT, very popular offering in the market right now. That is basically a chatbot that can have a human-like conversation based on the natural language prompt. So you write anything, they understood, and after processing, they provide the responses accordingly. So now when we talk about the Copilot Studio, so you have a variety of the conversational tools at your fingertip. You can build the manual topics where you can have a control the flow of turn-by-turn dialogues. So that is the one prospect for that one. But also after, including the more enhanced features into that one, you can build or call the actions directly. You can create the plugins there. And basically you can use around 400 plus pre-built Power Platform or Power Automate connectors there also. You can also build and use the custom GPTs there, as you saw in the OpenAI announcement in the Ignite. and or last ignite as you even create custom prompts to the GPT. So this all now are possible with the Copilot Studio. You can also, now we are also talking about the autonomous agent, but let's keep that topic for now. So you can also take the piece of, and like, you can take this piece and then create your own custom Microsoft Copilot to deploy your own websites with the Power Pages. Like, it's quite possible that you can enable it directly from there, and you can then make a customization in the Copilot Studio. But eventually, if you don't need to enable it from there, you need to plug your own one. You just create it and just plug it. So you will get an iframe HTML code. You just need to go and inject it in your HTML of the Power Pages. Also, you can choose to customize the Microsoft first-party copilots like M365 copilots. So you can use the enterprise scenarios or the capabilities, for example, allowing your employee interacting with the M365 copilot in the Teams to ask the HR questions. So this is quite much possible. And even if you have, for example, ServiceNow Copilot, Customer Service Copilot, which is in the app itself, those also can be extended at some point of time. Copilot Studio is built on, uh, top of the Copilot Studio, Power Platform, AI Builders, and other Power Platform technologies, and bring together and integrate various conversational stack from the Microsoft, from Azure OpenAI Studio, Cognitive Service, bot services, and much more. So let's take a closer look on that one. And now if you can see like what the Copilot Studio provide you. So Copilot Studio basically come up with a maker studio where you can just test, create, or deploy your conversational topics, generative AIs, related stuff. You can as I include the advanced capabilities of the Azure Copilot framework natively in the Copilot Studio. In the workspace, you can create the plugins, you can enable the generative AIs, even you can publish it to the different channels, which is being out of box available there. And then still you get an iframe HTML markup code, so you can inject it at any point of time with any of the targets. Also, you get a really nice analytical insight, which has been already enhanced now. So right now you have a toggle to go to the enhanced version or even the classic version. In the coming days, you will just see the enhanced version into that one once the complete transition will be over. Then you have an automation studio where you can, as I mentioned, you can use over 1400 plus pre-built or even the custom data connectors for digitally processing your automation into your conversation flows. So you can call any of the APIs available. You can connect with the SAP, ServiceNow, or any of the different kind of the platforms there. Also, then you have an admin studio where you just monitor all of the admin activity. You can deploy the Copilot securely using the central administration, and also you can manage the roles there. It's quite simple to manage across the different environments, compliance, and all of the governance features from there. Let's have a quick look of another video about the Copilot Studio, and then we will move forward. So till now, like the whole session was quite cluttered. But before we move to the demo part, I would like to just quickly move and show how the Maker Studios look like for the different perspectives. So let me just quickly show how the homepage of the Power Pages look like, how the Copilot Studio canvas or basically the Maker Studio look like. We will see some things there a bit deep into this portion like the Power Pages and the Copilot. And at the end of the day, we will integrate everything together with the customer service, Copilot, agents, as well as the Power Pages. So we will see into that one. But let's try to have a default or a short look on how the Power Pages look like. So you have to go to the make.powerpages.microsoft.com. Easy option if you're already using the Power Platform components like Power Apps or anything, you always have an option to navigate from one umbrella product to the other umbrella product, including the admin center. So you can navigate it. And now here you have a simple AI-driven bot or conversational text box where you just describe what you are looking for, and then it will create a complete bot for you. We will have a quick look for that one, that how it does look like. But let's quickly move to the template part because this is more important when we are talking about the customer service. So here you have a lot of predefined templates, as I mentioned you earlier. And in that, if you go for the Dynamic 365 tab here, in the Dynamic 365, you will see all of the template which is related with the Dynamic 365 products. So if you have, for example, the customer portal, if you have a supply chain, um, then we have a community, customer self-service. Definitely, if you have if you want to look this all of the services, and if you have a customer service installed, the thing is that like you can use any of this template once you have the app installed at the back end. If you don't have the app installed, like if you don't have the field service installed, then you cannot use the field service template here. So this is how does it look like. So right now you can choose this template like a customer self-service template if you would like to proceed, because it took a bit of time, like a couple of seconds to the minute. So I already installed one of the customer self-service portal in the morning itself during preparation of the demo. So, and then you have a like different learning links available. So from the MS Learn to the some of the videos including and the different references into that. Then we have a complete solutioning part, so we can just play around all of the solutioning stuff here, because the purpose is not to create on the dev environment, but still you have to move it to the from dev to test to like from dev to test, and then from there to pre-prod and the production or the UAT itself. So let's move to the home here, and here I have a two portals, so you can create any number of the portals there. There is not as such limitation with the best of my knowledge. And so the first one is which I have created in the morning, like it's basically the global customer self-service portal, which I have created. You have an option here to share this with the internal users. You can see the details. You can move to the portal management app, which is basically the model-driven app, and then you can move to the admin centers, or you can delete it at any point of time if you have a privileges for sure. And you can preview it. So on the preview, you will get into option if you want to preview on the desktop or even to your mobile. Also, you can email a preview link, so you can share this link with others so they can actually open it. In the edit, you will see I have an option to edit the site code. Like it will open the Visual Studio Code, and then basically I can directly make changes directly from there. If you directly click on the edit, then you will basically move to the Maker Studio there. And then this looks like this, which is very common to the other Power Platform products. If you just go, for example, for the Canvas app and the other areas, or the Maker Studio of the Power Apps, it looked quite pretty same. And here I see the page design data form. So you can, as I mentioned, you have a liberty here to just go and walk around that. So for example, page design, I probably want a color theme. So create a color theme, summer colors, or so hopefully it should give answers. Sometime it responded or it gave an error. You just retry and it should work actually in that case. Always remember these are the trial. So yeah, it is having a trouble into that one, but again, you can just try it. And it should work. Otherwise, as I said, these all are the trial ones. So there might be the chances that you need to make some more tries there. And we will also look when we will create it from the scratch. But then you have a main navigation with all of the available pages and the other pages, which is not the part of the navigation now. In this styling, you can change the themes directly from there. So if you don't like particular theme, then you can just go and make change themes accordingly. If you change the theme, then directly you can preview it at the same time. So if you like it, you can keep it. Otherwise, you can roll back at any point of time. In the data, basically, you will see all of the things related with how the data has been organized, like all of your tables and how on the columns and everything inside. Then you can see the views and the forms and everything inside that one. The setup and security are the two important tab here. So in the setup, you will see the last option here, Add Copilot. So in the Add Copilot, basically, you can enable or disable the Copilot for your end user. And here I'm talking about your end users, not the Copilot for the makers, because Copilot for the makers is already enabled there. So you can enable the Copilot on the site and so on. You can define the data, or you can also go with the application insight, Azure application insight for the Copilot analytics, and it will directly make you jump to the Copilot Studio, where you can see the analytical tabs. And if you already configure the Azure application insight, you can view the things there as well there. So this is more related with the Copilot stuff here. Then the security, you have you can run the security scans, and then you can have some security options. You can have a different identity provider, site visibility, and some of the advanced settings also, which is in the preview for sure. But the plan is from the product group to move every preview to the go live feature. So this is how does it look like in a real short way. So I just quickly go to the home page, and let me just create. So I used one of the template, but let me just try to create it and something from the scratch. So create a summer goal, maybe website for global dynamic 365 bootcamp, and let's see how it is working. So it take a couple of seconds there, and then it provide me, okay, this could be the site name, this could be the address, and hopefully it should be available. Yeah, and I can choose the available language, which is being available in my data source, and this is the page. If I want to try more, then I can look for more. If I go to the next, then I will see the different pages here. So ideally, I should select all of them, and then I can easily remove it from the navigation from the Maker Studio, because if it gone, then you have to write a different prompts to add a new page there. But I have added. I click on the done, and hopefully it should be ready. It is already getting deployed, so it is setting up my environment. It says it could take few minutes, but yeah, it's not an hours, not in 30 minutes and so on. So it should be really quick into that one. So just wait for a second here, and if it is taking a lot of time, I can just quickly move to the Copilot Studio then, but just let's say, yeah, wait for a couple of seconds there. So it is getting things ready for us, and now you have a brand new website available here. So you can directly start surfacing this, and yeah, you can sync and preview, but the brand new website is already being available there. So I can preview it here. It again might. Okay, the setup is still going on. Once the setup is completed, you can preview, and then you can see the brand new website. This is how you can just quickly create a website. And as I mentioned, if you go to the setup tab here in the Add Copilot section, you will see the toggles here to enable the bot for your website. I won't hold much time. This is just to show how to create a website, but I will again focus on the Dynamic 365 Bootcamp, which I have been already created there. So let me just move it there. And the next thing which I would like to show here, how to preview and how to see it. So if you want to preview the whole site, you have a preview button there, and then you can directly move to the desktop, and it does look like this. Take a couple of seconds again to load first time, and then if it is already cached, it should be really quick into that one. Although the same site is being already open here, but I would just wait for a couple of seconds if it is getting opened. Okay, then by the time it is loading, I can just move for the other one. URLs are same, but that, okay, that is being already started loading. Okay, it's loaded now, so I just close the other one. And here I'm already signed in because I was working a bit before to make some changes there already. And this is your basically customer self-service portal. So you see, you can do the branding very quickly without having a lot of issues there. And the basic thing, what you can do it here, the simple use case, if you want that your end users should create cases and they can manage the cases directly from as an external users, it is pretty simple offering from the Microsoft. So you can use this customer self-service template for your Power Pages, You can set up your users with different identity providers. So users can log in with the Google, they can log in with the Facebook, they can log in with the X or Twitter, or now it's called an X. There are the different identity providers, even Azure AD B2C, Azure AD B2B, and there are so many others. Even you can go with the custom XAML or open the different identity provider setups there. So you can set up those things, and then your users should be able to log in with their specific credentials, whatever is being allowed there. Once we will go to the sign-in page, you will see there's a local sign-in available, but that is basically for the development phase. Ideally, it should not go to the production because Microsoft already deprecated that one. And once your user have an access, you can directly onboard your user. You can link your user directly with the contact in the Dynamic 365 customer service, and whatever user will do there, like we will see. So I would like to see, okay, how many cases I have generated. So for me, it's quite simple and realistic that, okay, I don't have to call to the agent and so on. I don't have to visit to their service centers. Probably I can directly create the cases and follow from here. So this view will show all of the cases opened by me and their status also. But let's try to create a case here and then see how does it work. So I'm trying to create a new case. It's a pretty simple form. As I said, it's out of box, really neat and clean. But if you really want to customize this, there is no issue into that one. You can customize it till any extent. And I said that, okay, I have an issue with probably user onboarding. My account is Power Community. This is my contact. I can search anything there, and I have a problem, and I can go with the default subject. Just for the time's sake, I just copy and paste this, and it always show some of the intelligence there. So if you have already related case available, then it will say, okay, you have one case already available there. And then simply I can attach any of the files if I have any screenshot and anything, and what kind of the file, it all customized. So each file can be till the 90 MB, but you can customize this also. I have created a case there, and without delaying the time, let's quickly move to. So I have a case here, which is basically this case number, and let's try to move it to the customer self-service portal and see if this case has been already generated. Let me refresh it. And now the case should have been come, not yet. Wrong view, all cases, because that was not my case. And this case is being available there. Let's open the case. So here I'm working as in customer service agent. The other window is basically for your end users. And now I can see, okay, user has already created the case. And if I can just ask, okay, probably I don't know what issue is there. So probably I would be looking for the screenshot and so on. So I can just simply go and interact with the user by saying that, okay, I need to add a new portal comment here. And this will basically, it's portal comment, as I said, the old naming convention, but it is actually the Power Pages comment. And I said, okay, please provide further information here. Okay. Like error, screenshot, and so. And in this particular case, I just simply mention this and I just save it and then send it to the portal. The moment I will send it to the like as a portal comment, the record will be turned to the read only. And now you see the record is read only, but let's see how it is getting impacted on the portal. So I open the case again to view how and what is going on there. And at the end, you will see there is a comment or the request came from the customer service agent. So this is how you can directly interact with your end users, or the vice versa. Your end user can interact with the agents. So they can interact without to be on the phone call based on their time, and then they can exchange the information the way it need to be there. So this is, as I said, not for the external users. It could be the internal users as well. So if you are in the IT, like if you have an IT department, somebody would like to change the faulty keyboards or the mouse and so on, or maybe the screens. Yeah, it can interact with the IT engineers and between your employees also. You can also put a comment there if you want. You can add any of the comment. It will reflect back there, and you can update. You can close the case and the cancel this at any point of time. This is how does it look like. The another important aspect here, if you can see on the right bottom corner, I have an chatbot available, which is being integrated. I have already customized this, but I will tell you how to customize this because, yeah, this, as I mentioned, it's an external facing website. It's not generally not meant for your internal users or the licensed users. If it is an external facing website, it need to be pixel perfect website with your all of the company or the organization branding and everything. So you definitely would like to, this can be branded very easily, but how the bots can be brand with your company or the company branding, basically I will just tell you in a second from there. But this is how does it look like. So hi, I'm a global customer service bootcamp bot. How can I help you today? I just asked, okay, how can I create a case? And then simply it just started providing me the response. So I haven't configured anything. It is just fetching the information based on your Power Pages itself. So sorry, unable to process. Let me just refresh it and then see. It should provide me the response here. And yeah. Okay, let me ask the same question again. Unable to process or really bad time. Okay, we'll try on the other bot because my other bot is also up and running there. So we can have a quick look, but you should expect a response. Otherwise, I can directly show in the Copilot Studio then, because there also I need to show you how to customize this. But the idea is how to basically customize the user experience and the look and feel here. So for that, you need to, again, go to the editor. And in the editor, you have to search for the header HTML. In the header HTML, you need to just simply inject the style tag, and you have to just then look for some of the key classes there. If you use these classes, it will directly make an impact on the bot. So the pages.chatbot header, like if you want to change the color, you can just simply go and pick the color here. And if I say Control S here, it should save this. It has started saving. And then I go to the Designer Studio. I start syncing because after changes, you have to sync it. So it reflect the latest changes there. But let me just show the other things. So you have a chatbot headers, you have web chat, basically like how their size look like, their windows, the bubbles, like bubbles are basically the text from the agent and from the user, or from the bot and the user. So this, you can define it there. Then privy privacy message still see, as I mentioned, they are still using the PV classes for that one, or ideally to call the Copilot Studio, but the classes and the infrastructure is still using the old framework here. And yeah, chat wizards, tooltip, and example PV privacy, how this bottom look like. So let me just quickly move it to this, save it back this one also. It might take a couple of seconds to synchronize and make an impact, but let me just try to quickly show you how does it should look like. So I changed the header and I changed the privacy message here. So let's reload it. And now you see it's turned as in blue. It is still not reflected. So it might take a couple of seconds to a minute. If I again refresh, probably it should have been reflected. So this is how it changed. And this is how you can do the user experience changes by using the CSS into that one. Let me see if it is working here again at the last try. Otherwise, I will just show you the last option. Okay, so really in the bad mode. But this is a trial instance, so I won't expect more into that one. Now let's quickly move to the Copilot Studio. So I was to the Power Pages, but now I'm trying to move to the Copilot Studio and show you here that look, you can create your autonomous agents or your own agents there. You can also customize your M365 bots there. And I created like global customer service bootcamp bot. So I just created this one. Let me just show you how does it look like. Interface is quite pretty simple here. So like, as I said, the consistency is a key for any of the Power Platform products or the canvas areas. So you see we have an app launcher. You will see in every product, Copilot Studio, the branding for that or the product name. Then you have an environment selection there. So you can select any of the environments. You have a setting icons. same like in others. So you can go for the general settings or maybe settings related with your time zone and everything. You have an help icon, then you have a basically you can the user gear or the user setting gears, and here you can view your account. You can change the Microsoft 365 profile related things. You can have a view, or if you have a privilege, you can change it also there. On the left navigation, you have some of the menu bars. So you can go to the home, you can create a new agent, you can see the list of the agent, and then you have a library also available there, which is kind of the template library there. So I'm on the specific bot here right now, and then on the bot itself, you will have a top navigation menu. You can see an overview where you have a details, all of the analytical knowledge, actions, and the triggers, different topics, and if it is published, when it is published, and so on. Then you have all of the knowledge bases there. So literally all of the knowledge which is being related with that. Then you have a topics, all of the topics related with that, um, like a different topics. And then you have an actions, like right now you don't have any action, but you can create it. It's basically the plugins activity. If you enable the Gen AI, then you will show all of these activities here. All of the analytical window, like customer satisfaction, sessions billing, and all of the, like if you want to boost the conversation, so any kind of the information available with that, you can go to the new analytical window, and then you have a different channels also there. So you can integrate with any of the channels which is being available there, including the Dynamic 365 customer service. You can integrate with the Salesforce, ServiceNow, Zendesk, and Genesis custom engagement hubs. Then you can publish at any point of time. You have a setting, and then you have a test toggle, so you can test your agent at any specific time. You can go for the demo website. You can export the agent, import. You can view directly the solution, because again, it is a part of the Power Platform. So you have to move from one environment to another environment by using the solution only. You can delete and just share it. And then in the settings, you have a different option like agent details. You can change the name for the agent. You can change the icon for that. You have a generative AI option available there. So you have a classic. If you want to go with the generative, then you have a different options there. And some of the premium features like enhance the search results. In the security, you have an authentication setting. So you have three options available there. Like you can go with the no authentications, and then you can go with the authentication with the Microsoft, or you can set up the authentication manually. So these options are available for you. Then apart from that, you can whitelist also your IPs and so others. So you can whitelist your IPs of web channel security. You can do authoring canvas is basically the canvas area when we will work. So I will show you the canvas area soon. And this is just to optimize it. So if you have 30 nodes there, then basically it optimized it and it is easy to work. Entities are basically like kind of the objects if you are from the programming languages. So you have an age, city, you don't have to mention. We will show in the demo, like if I just write a whole sentence and the bot or the agent will pick the name from the whole sentence and it ignore everything else. The skills are the reusable, like you can add the skills. This is for the voice integration. Languages are there. Recently, the new language has been added as an Arabic there. So, and also the response is also like generative responses are also in the Arabic. So that has been the recent inclusion into that, but in the preview. Then NLU understanding, you have an NLU by default, but you can go with the Microsoft CLU as well there. We have a component collection, so like a reusable code kind of this stuff. And then you have an advanced option to integrate all of the analytical data with the application inside. You can have a metadata and the view solution. Metadata basically used when you're trying to go with the Azure SDK and so to use it. So you will get few information from there. Let's quickly move to the home. And here I'm just simply asking, okay, create. So I'm using basically what I'm trying to do now. I'm trying to use the agent to create a new agent. So create a bot for training bootcamp. So I just simply mentioned this. I can use any of the template which has been already available at the bottom, and then I can it keep interacted with me. Okay, you want to put a knowledge source, what could be the name, what you are expecting from there, and then it will create a bot for me. So I can skip the configuration. I can create it based on this knowledge, or there's a like I can restart the agent. I can go with the advanced settings. If I go to the advanced setting, basically I'm trying to decide, okay, what solution I'm going to put this all the information. So I can say, okay, you should go and put all the solution to here. And then I can decide the schema name and so many other things here. So this is how it look. I don't proceed with that. Maybe I would just quickly move again to the agents and then show the Bootcamp agent there. So I have an agent probably created there. Let me just see. Maybe a Bootcamp bot. Okay, I've created an agent there, and then I would try to collect from my use case that how the use case look like. So one of the use case here, like there's a lady named Christina Adams, and she's a customer for the Microsoft. She bought a new device or the Surface device from the online store. And after using the few days, basically the Surface is not powering up and she's having an issue there. So she tried to visit to the social platform or the customer self-service portal, which I have just demoed. And then she started engaging with the AI-driven bot to troubleshoot the problem. And the moment she engaged, Microsoft maintained all the conversation, all the digital channels, and they provide the response based on the conversational and the generative AI. Then Christina raised a ticket via the bot to track the progress of the resolution. She followed up with the progress, request a call back, and then she decided to engage the live agent. And then she started talking to the live agent, and the whole chat will transfer to the real agents. Then Ellen is a agent, basically answer the Christina queries, and Ellen shared the information seamlessly to resolve her concern. And then finally he closed the ticket and create a KB articles, get feedback, and so many other things. So very simple use case. Let's try to see how does it surface here. So I have a bot here. I just started from here. And for that, basically what I would do, I would just simply ask or engage the bot. Okay, I just say hello. And let's see if bot has started responding. Okay, how can I help you today? So I just simply ask, okay, how can I take the warranty of my Surface device? And then bot has started responding me, okay, this is what you have to respond. And then I have a hardware warranty service, how to get service and repair, and check the Microsoft warranty, basically to create a service order. I can go and see, okay, this is being there. This, all the information are coming from, let me just toggle. Okay. This, all the information coming from the knowledge source, which I have already provided. So you see there are different knowledge sources has been provided while setting up this bot. So I have provided, you can add the further knowledge source like as a public website, SharePoint, or the Dataverse, which is in the preview, but you can use any one of them. And then you have an advanced option to go with any